is what we largely call as budget. So when you're budgeting for marketing, you need to budget for everything: the space you're working in, right? The space you're working in, who you're working with, who's charging you what money, what licenses you need to buy, how do you make a prototype, how do you take it to the market, how do you get these feedbacks, and what do you pay agencies if they're helping you with these activities. So create a budget with sound reasoning, all right, on how much it would be. Always make sure that you think of an extreme case rather than a best case scenario, wherein there is a possibility of spending more money than less. That would help you be realistic in your P&L statements, your profit and loss statements. The next part of it is to ensure that there is clear accountability. As an entrepreneur, what happens is we start this as a hobby, most of us, right? And sometimes hobbies don't necessarily become products. And if hobbies become products, they don't necessarily become companies, right? So so you need to understand the difference between the three. So if you're doing it as a hobby, don't even try to create an organization out of that, because then it becomes unrealistic. If you're trying to create a product, you need to ask yourself if your whole organization is only going to be a one product organization. There are many organizations which are one product and still very successful, but you cannot put all your earnings and make a big mountain of it and say, I'm going to bet all of that on this product, because that could be wonderful, unless the market reacts to it in your proof of concept stage. So some of these should be, or all of this should be involved in a marketing plan. And you do not have to certainly follow any format for this. You could be intelligent enough to simply put a Word document, write about the ecosystem you are working with, what is the value proposition of your product, how are you going to do the hustle of getting primary feedback, what is it, what and how did you know that there are no competitors in the market? So is it by primary research? Did you do secondary research? How and what have you done? Or would you be doing that? Is there a cost involved in that? Then to make the prototype, what would be involved? And then to take it to the market through various channels, how much would it cost? And then when Chinmay actually takes you through the financial statements and what he would teach you about return on investment and ROCE and weighted average cost of capitals and all of discounted cash flows and all of that, it would help you know and understand why some of the budgeting for marketing is very, very, very critical for you to be successful in creating a good marketing plan. I'll move to the next slide. You can feel free to ask a question by raising your hand at any point of time. Okay, so these slides are self-explanatory. I'll send it to Umesh and he could probably distribute these slides to you at some point of time. It's got some templates, etc. So you could use that if you wish to. Before I enter and tell you how it is done, when you create a product or services, you need to ask these 5 questions to yourself, right? And we touched on some of these. But the uniqueness or value proposition is very, very important, right? Ask yourself, why would somebody pay you money to own the product or to receive the services from you? You need to have a clear understanding. And most of us usually say you should be able to explain that in an elevator pitch. And what an elevator pitch means is that you should probably be able to explain that in less than 10 seconds. That's about the time the elevator takes from ground floor to the 5th floor, right? In less than 10 seconds, you should be able to explain what your product or your services is. And if the person who's listening understands the value proposition of your product or services, then it becomes a lot easier for you to sell that, because it is that much more easier to understand. But if you think it takes a day to explain or 15 sheets of paper to explain your value proposition, you know there is something wrong. Because what we have seen over the years is the consumers of your product or services do not consume it if it is overly complex. All right, they fail to consume it, they fail to understand, so they try to retract themselves from such services that people offer. They tend, as consumers, we tend to go into things that are easy to understand, easy to behold, and easy to use. That's important. Once you have that value proposition, elevator pitch, you need to ask yourself, what's the demographics, what's the ethnicity, what's the socioeconomic background, what's your target audience, the target buyers, right? Is it in a particular age group? Is it in a particular band of people who earn a certain amount of money? For example, if I'm selling a yacht in the market, I know students are not going to buy it. It's only the multimillionaires who can afford a yacht. So my targeted market are multimillionaires. Then I look at where can I find these multimillionaires? They either own businesses or are in a C-level position in organizations. So my target market is that. Now, then I ask myself, how can I reach out to these people? Then I ask questions like, where do they go to eat? Where do they seek information from? What gadgets do they use? Where do they hang out? And then I see how can I have a recall value in all of these places so that they see my brand and my product or services in all these places. So it's very targeted marketing. If a product or services are for students, then you wouldn't necessarily put advertisements on aeroplanes. You would then say, where do students hang out? Okay, there are these places where students go to: university campuses, canteens, pubs, sports and recreational centers, etc. So I can find my demographic people over there. Now, how do I hook on to them so that they know that there is this product and offering in the market which solves a particular problem? And when you start to ask these questions and find answers, it becomes easier for you to make sure that your target audience is listening to you and understands what the value proposition is. So it's important to first identify who your target is to buy or use this product or services. Don't come back and say that it is like oxygen, Sanjeev. Anyone who is born till they die will use my product. Right? That probably will help when you have to talk to your grandmother about it. But in the real world, it very rarely helps, right? It is not often the case. Then while you are in the market, you need to understand there is no monopoly in the market, except if you are if you are the Indian Railways, right? That's the only thing probably that has got monopoly in the market. Otherwise, the government doesn't allow monopoly, at least in a legalized way. So you will have competitors, some who have a similar product or some who are very close to what you're offering. So you should understand what percentage of the market are you targeting? Is it a displacement strategy? For example, am I going to displace a client or customer from using a current services or a product and bring him on to mine? Or are you saying, no, you continue to use that, I am going to piggyback on that. I'm going to have a product or service which can sit on top of it. For example, McDonald's is known to give burgers, right? And fries and wedges, etc. So if I'm Coke, if I want the thirsty and hungry people to come in and they want a drink, I don't want McDonald's to have their own aerated drink. So I would go put up something in McDonald's and tie up with them so that I can be carried in all the stores globally as a brand of Coke. And so that when they are thirsty, when they want to eat a burger, they could also drink a Coke. So it's a very, very simple market entry strategy. I just go and I want to have a deal with all the big box retailers. And if they carry me, I know that would be the only soft drink or aerated drink they carry, which would give me access to all of their customer base. So understand who your competitors are, how they position themselves. Would you want to compete with them? Do you want to piggyback on them? And the definition of a competitor is very, very important while you're choosing the target buyer and the target market. Next most important thing for you to do is to learn the art of articulation or communication, right? Because as an entrepreneur, what happens, we are like frog in the well. We always think great of ourselves. We've not seen the external world. We don't know what the trouble is. When we speak passionately about this to our friends in the canteen or to our parents or to our neighbors, they all are so thrilled. They think most of the time that we are going to solve all the world's problem, or they probably think that we are the next best thing to sliced bread, right? They think we are going to solve the world's issues and problems tomorrow. But that probably is not the case most of the time, right? You need to know and understand how you articulate your value. So we spoke about the elevator pitch. Once you have an elevator pitch ready, my strong suggestion to each of you is have an elevator pitch. If you don't have one, work on that. That itself simplifies the message. Right, that itself simplifies the message. And when your message is simplified, it becomes easier for you to position and promote your product. right? There are two important things: positioning and promotion. Marketing is just not about promotion, it has all aspects of it, including the pricing. So it is important for you to know how to position and promote. And that can only happen if you can articulate things well, not communicate. Articulate things well, right? It could be in any language, doesn't matter. You don't have to be Shakespeare for this now. Don't have to go study English literature. But I want you to know and understand what is it that you can talk about your service or product in less than 10 seconds. Does the listener understand? Break that down and see how you can promote and position that for the end user. That's critical. All of the above that we spoke about then becomes a part of your selling strategy. So marketing and sales are two different things. Don't use them together, right? Marketing and sales are different. So I'm sure when Chinmay teaches you finance, you would know what's the difference between accounting and finance. He will touch upon that. His approach to bringing you the concepts of finance is not to make you a financial manager, but at least to enable you to read a balance sheet, if not to make one. Right? You should know how to read a P&L statement. You need to know what are direct and indirect costs in that, so that when you create a strategy, that is a part of it. So sales starts when marketing ends, similar to finance. Finance starts when accounting ends in some ways, right? From a layman's perspective. So you'd also need to now see how and what can be done. Now, since I've marketed, people know about it, I know my target audience, how will I actually sell this product or service? How does it actually reach the hands of clients? How much will they pay me? Do they pay me now? Do they pay me later? Do they pay me a royalty? What are the different models in which I can engage with my end client and customer? So these are very, very, very important aspects, right? Though very conventional, these things still hold good in today's world, in the world of internet, in the world of boundaryless operations across geographies. Some of these questions, or all of them actually, hold good even in today's world. So I would urge you to ensure that while I'm speaking, I'm sure some of you are thinking in your subconscious mind, what's working, what's not? Can I have a 10-second pitch on my product? Do I have my target audience clearly defined? Do I know how much will they pay me for it? Do I know what my ecosystem is? Do I know who my competitions are? If not, don't sit in the room and think that everything will come from Google Uncle. If everything came from Google Uncle, we all would have been billionaires by now, right? You have to hustle. You have to go out, ask a person to pay money to use your product and services. That is your critical feedback. And that is the learning that makes your product matured, right? And that is the research you need to do. Doesn't cost any money, just costs your time, right? And that's critical for you to do to be a successful entrepreneur. I'll go to the next slide. You must have seen this. I'm not sure the current business model canvas that Umesh has shared with you, but largely when I look at it, there are two parts to the business. One is the spend, the cost, everything that you do to build a business, to get the clients, to travel, to hit your milestone, to hire people, to make a prototype, all of that. A lot of costs involved, right? Nowhere over here will you see payment for yourself. I'll come to it later. Why would you pay and not pay yourself? The other half of doing a business is all about revenues. Top line, right? How do you actually get money from clients and customer? Which target markets would you go? What channels would you use? Do you sell it online? Do you actually keep it in a store? Do you put it in a fridge? Does it require that? Do you actually courier these products? Because all of these have various implications to the cost also. For example, let's assume you're making porcelain plates. If you're making porcelain plates and if you're selling it on internet, then if someone buys you 10 plates from you, you have to courier it. Now the courier costs are quite high because the porcelain plates are very heavy. Now if you're going to courier everything, that becomes a problem. So is it a good model and feasible model? Because porcelain can break in transit too. So people who make porcelain plates very rarely would say, I will do courier to you and I will sell it on the internet. They would rather have it in a retail store. Or you can take marbles that is used to furnish your homes. They wouldn't courier big chunks of marble to your house because it's impossible at that because it's so heavy that it's impossible to courier because the cost will go up 100x. So what do? They open their own stores. Where do they open? In the outskirts of the city largely. Why? Because it costs less for infrastructure. Why in the outskirts of city? Because your heavy vehicles like lorries can only go across the outer ring road and cannot come into the city. So these vehicles can pick these things up at any time during the day. So that is how they look at the product. Where should I have my factory? Where should I have my retail space? How should I go about doing it so that the business is not restrictive? So you find channels of doing business, right? Online, offline, a hybrid channel, and all of those things. Then there are different segments of customers like we spoke about. So those would be your revenue streams. But the most important thing is the difference that you create. What is the value that makes you a choice product or a choice service that people or your end consumers want to use? That is critical for you to understand, right? So when you're making your business model, always start to think about the life cycle of your consumer, from the acquisition, in the sense, how do you acquire a client or customer? We spoke about some of those things. To what happens when they acquire your product or services. Do they need maintenance? Do they need to be taught on how to use it? Do they need to come back to you to buy more? Do you wish to sell more of your services or product once they are your clients and customers? And then in the life cycle of the consumer, there would be a time when they would leave you also. All right. So what is it and how is it that you treat such clients and customers who let go of your product or let go of your service at some point of time? So if you understand, and if you draw this whole circle and say this is the life cycle of a consumer, then you can add a lot of value in each of these stages. And then you calculate something called the lifetime value of the client or customer. How much of total money can you make from some of these? And this is interlinked to some of the financial strategies that Chinmay would probably talk about if he gets into the details of it. So I would urge you to think very, very practically. This is no science, right? This is all about being articulate in your thinking. So have a clear mind. Ask yourself, why did you download Facebook app for the first time? Why did you download Instagram for the first time? How did it come to you? Did your friends tell you? Were you under peer pressure? Did you actually surf the internet and find that there is something called Instagram wherein you can share stories through photographs and videos? Did that interest you? And what happened as soon as you download it? Did you get specific targeted advertisements? Did they ask you what's your age, demography, where are you based? What is it of interest to you so that I can curate your feed? So did they actually understand who their consumer is so that they can have specific marketing strategies for you? Did you ever buy anything through Instagram advertisements when they showed you a shoe or a tuition center or a book? Did you click on that and did you go and actually spend money? Ask yourself these things and ask yourself, how did they know that I need this? How did they know my profile, my needs, my wants, my moods? This is all a plan of marketing, right? There's a bit of behavioral sciences that come into it, but we wouldn't get into details of that. But it is important for you to know and understand that these aspects work the best when you actually spend some time and know and understand and clearly articulate your value propositions. Then it becomes easy to pitch your value proposition, understand the behaviors of the end client, and then look at moving from a hobby to a product to an organization, right? And without that thinking, it is impossible to get that model right. Once you get that, then you create a life cycle of a client and consumer and look at the entire lifetime value that you could draw from this. That would lead you to create a discounted cash flow. When you're saying how much will you earn every month, you're just not saying that one customer will pay me $10 to buy a plastic tap I have made. You need to also tell him that when you buy a plastic tap, are you also selling rubber washers inside that? How often would you sell it? Are you selling a maintenance service that every 6 months somebody will go and repair it? So my spend on marketing, that would be so much, but my revenues on that would be so much, right? And then do you also cross-sell and say, would you want a brass tab because plastic gives you these issues? Can I give you a brass tab, which is your upselling? Then are you saying that I can put a filter on the tab there, and can I give you a filtration product? That's your cross-selling. You're completely selling a different product. So you need to understand the nuances of how and what the consumer behavior is, the ecosystem, and what are the value additions you can bring into that ecosystem. That is critical. It's like going to the kirana shop outside of your college. So you go there, there are people who smoke. So when they go buy a cigarette, you see the kirana shop guy, he does fantastic marketing. So what does he have? He usually has chocolates, anything from 50 paisa upwards of 1 rupees. So if you do not have change, he doesn't search hard for it. He tries to push the 50 paisa chocolates, gives you 4 of them, or the 1 rupee chocolates. He also gets a revenue on that. He might be making 10 paisa per chocolate, right? So that's another revenue model for him, simply because he's priced the previous product that you brought not at a whole number, but at a fractional number. And people don't carry change these days. The rest of it is adjusted by the sweet or the candy that you buy. And he also has candies because people don't want to have a bad breath after a cigarette. So you tend to buy a candy after that. And then he has bananas also hanging, because you usually smoke after a heavy meal. So people actually tend to have a banana too. So there is a product mix that he has got in his kirana shop, right? Then he also sells lighters, because sometimes people are on the move. They want to light the cigarettes while they are away. So they have a lighter that they use. So you just think about some of these things, his or her own marketing strategy within the small space. Look at the various options he has, how he looks at the product mix, and what does he do to promote some of these aspects. That's in simple essence what the business model canvas is, and how you need to know and understand if you have to create a sales and marketing strategy for your product or services. I'll quickly go through this again, but I wouldn't spend much time. We have already spoken about this in a little detail. This is, how does your product or services have a market fitment? I'll send you the slide. It's self-explanatory. Like I said, first and foremost, you need to be solving for a problem. And for that, you need to know what the problem is. All right. And if you know what the problem is, then you find a solution for that. You do research first, both primary and secondary research, understand and gain insights of the problem, and see if there is a viable solution or a viable product already there in the market. If not, then you create a viable product, what we call as a minimum viable product for them, and see if it solves the problem fully, partially, or does it not. If it is, then great, because if you have a minimum viable product, if it solves for a problem that you've identified, if you think it's a genuine issue that people will pay for because they don't want to encounter this problem, then there is an element of desire, want. People would want that product, right? So you need to look for the desirability, the need, the want, right? The desire of individuals to buy your product. Once you do this, then you do many iterations and testings, right? You tend to see, do I have it in this model, another model? How is the product made, or what would be the service offerings, different channels that I would go with, all of those things. Once you do that, then you make a marketing plan, look at the market fitment, user behaviors, etc. And then you look at the growth on how it will happen by bringing resources, teams, having a pricing strategy, promoting strategy, etc. So once you have the desire created, you have created a minimum viable product, then it is about feasibility, right? How often and how much of this product is feasible to the market you're selling in. The intersection of all of this in this Venn diagram is what would create a successful organization. And that is critical for you to understand. So one of the critical things, or one of the most misused words in marketing, is the go-to-market strategy, right? So I don't want you to be confused with a lot of these words: business plan, go-to-market strategy, marketing strategy. What are all of these things? Can I use it interchangeably, right? It isn't the case. So I would like to spend a minute for you to understand what is the difference between a marketing strategy, a business plan, and a go-to-market strategy, right? All three are equally important for the business, right? But what you need to understand is this: there is a business plan which is focused on the business as a whole. It covers everything from operations to finance to marketing to sales to supply chain to information technology, etc. So that's the entire business plan. That is the DNA of the organization. The business plan is the DNA of the organization. Everything is built on that or around that. That's critical. A go-to-market strategy is primarily focused on your services or your product. All right, like what we said, we are actually in a go-to-market strategy thinking about what are the benefits of this product, right? We clearly cover all aspects of that. We try to see how do we position this product, how and what would be the market, what ethnography, what demographies, what socioeconomic background, what type of people will be buying this product. How do I have an elevator pitch in my go-to-market strategy? What is the messaging behind the product? What are the benefits and how can I do it? And then how do I actually get clients or customers in? So that acquisition strategy becomes critical for a go-to-market strategy, right? Usually a go-to-market strategy is used as from an entrepreneurship perspective. It could, but also it is used in all organizations, big and small, when they want to enter a new market, when they want to launch a new product, or when they want to change their pricing strategy, right? So a go-to-market strategy becomes central to growth-based organizations. Your marketing strategy is also focused on product, just like your go-to-market strategy, but mainly it would encompass everything that has got to do with how you market your product. Like I said in my previous slides, describing the ecosystem, describing the value proposition, the viable product, the user base, are you going to displace somebody, who your competitors are? That strategy, the marketing strategy, is both mid and long term that you do. All right. So your business strategy is central to everything. Then you have a go-to-market strategy to say, I'm going to go to North America. I'm going to go and launch this only in a part of Bangalore urban and not Bangalore rural. And then from there, you're emerging and identifying your minimum viable product and saying, how do I actually take this to the market now? That's your marketing strategy. All right. So each one constitutes the other. They cannot be looked at as a mutually exclusive aspect in the in how you position, promote, and price a product. All of these things need to be looked at together. All right. I'm not going to spend a lot of time over here. I know we have maybe 10 more minutes. I'll probably quickly take you through one or two slides after this, and then we could conclude, and I'm happy to take any questions or answers that you may have. All right. So most important thing when you start when you want to be an entrepreneur, do not look at hiring people. Do not look at immediately having an infrastructure. If there is a capex need, look for ways and means on how you can partner with people who already have invested in those kind of capital expenses like large machinery or anything else, right? You do not have to own anything to start first. Be very careful on your IP. If there is something unique, if there is something desirable, if there is a problem that no one is solved and you're solving, it may sound simple, it may look simple, the solution may be simple. Make sure you're protected by your IP, right? It takes a lot of money to protect your IP, but if you really think that this could help you actually secure your ideas and your business for a number of years, then you should think about talking to an IP lawyer. They would help you, or an intellectual property lawyer. They will help you understand what are the do's and don'ts with it, right? As an entrepreneur, one of the other mistakes that we do is we only tend to talk to people who listen to us and nod our head and make us comfortable and encourage us that we're doing the right things. Because often as humans, we like to be surrounded by people who respect you, all right, who listen to you, who acknowledge your existence. But as entrepreneurs, that's not a good thing to have. Don't surround yourself by yes people. If you surround yourself by yes people, your chances of failure are far greater than the ones who actually go to the market and meet folks who they have never met before and try to talk to them into your offerings, and they would give you an unconditional response. Those responses are the key for your success if you have to take your product and services to the market. And that, for me, will clearly highlight to you what the pain points could be, how you should modify your minimum viable product, what is it that you should be doing if you have to be successful in launching something in a particular segment or a particular market. So the primary as well as secondary research with a lot of hustling, going out, doing things yourself, spending that time in between classes outside of university is what would make you a well-rounded person. Your current entrepreneurship dream may not progress, but I promise that you would learn a thing or two by doing all these aspects, and it would make you a lot more mature. It would make you very, very competent. It would make you well-rounded, and you would be hugely successful in anything that you take as a career choice after university. So I strongly encourage kids and students in schools and colleges to try entrepreneurship as early as possible, because the learnings are invaluable. All right, I'll stop now. I've got a few more slides, but I wouldn't go through that. I'll stop now, and I'm happy to take any questions or suggestions if you may have.
Thank you very much, Sanjeev Sukumaran, for this elaborate session on every aspect of marketing. The marketing cycle is what I can say. I think, let me not take much time. I would like to request, if there's anything that any students want to ask, please feel free. Open. We can unmute all of them for a few seconds, please. For a few minutes, please. Sir?
It's done.
Oh. So if anybody has any questions, if you're ready with the questions, we have with us Jaiprakash Nagatihalli sir, who is the chairman for this workshop series. He has worked and curated this program. We have to recognize and appreciate that. And also I see co-chair for MANTHAN, FKCCI, Dr. Madhurani here. I would like to welcome her too.
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions?
I think there is one message from Gansham. You can just read it out.
Okay. Hi. How will we come to know whether the business plan we have is worth it or not?
It is like asking yourself after your exam whether I will pass or not. I'm sure you would know by the time you write your exam, whether you would clear your exam, whether you would top it or not. So I'm sure if you've done your proper marketing plan or business plan, and when you go through all aspects of this, you will understand the buying behaviors, you will understand what the competition is, you will understand. Sorry, if you're not speaking, can I request you to go on mute? Thank you. There's a lot of feedback. Yeah. So when you create a business and marketing plan, it is but natural for you to know whether this would be used, consumed, paid for or not. So that's the best way. The best way is to get feedback from the market. There's a lot of background noise, so I request people who not kind of go on mute.
Okay. There's one more question. It says, what are the topics we should cover in this round of presentation? This is more like, I think this is more focused on his presentation next. And Mr. Varun, see, the entire session covered the requirement of a business for a startup. Okay, you are asking for a specific thing for the presentation, which over to you, sir, Mr. Sanjeev.
Yeah. So what are the topics we should cover in this round of presentation? So there is a business plan. I don't know if there's a business plan template given to you. So largely, in my opinion, it needs to, your presentation at this stage should be very, very simple. One, if you have a minimum viable product or a proof of concept, bring it first, because experiencing what your end state product or services is critical for the jury to know. So please get that. Or if it is only an idea, and if you have not done anything with it, it becomes difficult for you to actually prove any differentiation or for people to experience what your offering is. So what you should cover is, do you have a minimum viable product or do you have a proof of concept? Talk about the problem statement, talk about what you are bringing in and how it's solved for that. Talk about who your market is, what is the ecosystem you're working in, clearly articulate that. Don't say it's $1 billion market because there are 100 million users. On an average, they spend so much. We don't want to know that, because that was a wrong way to probably approach it. What you must say is, look, I've done my primary research. I met 1,100 people. I asked all of them to use it. Out of that, 1% of them use, and out of the 1%, only 0.01% actually paid me for it. That's my current market stat. The demographics of people who said no are this, the ethnic group is this, the socioeconomic background is this. So this is why I believe this is my target audience. This is how I would position my product. So to cover that, and then cover how would and what channels would you use to sell the product? Is it online? Is it offline? If it's offline, if it is like a cold drink, you'll have to have a space in the fridge in a retail market. And we know fridge and finding space in the fridge is impossible, because there are people like Coke and Pepsi and all the big players that control the refrigerated market in retail space. It's impossible for anybody else to go into that. As soon as they put your bottle inside, somebody will be waiting to take them out, right? So how do you enter that market? How do you beat it? What would you do, right? That's also critical. Or are you finding another way and mean of doing it? It is like Tang, the orange powdery drink like Rasna. So instead of them making a drink and keeping it in the fridge, they knew it is impossible to beat the Pepsis and Coke. So what did they do? They formulated it differently and they made a powder. They said, you have fridge at home, you have cold water, I would give you the formulation, you mix it and drink at the temperature you like to. So they do not want space in the fridge. They want space along with the Lays and all the other crisps that you buy in the market. So if you go into a retail store, you will find Lays, Rasna, Tang, and all of this in a similar aisle, because those are things that go well with each other. All right. So that's what you will never find a Lays and a Papadum next to it. It's impossible, because they don't just match with each other. So it is about the recall value when you go into that. So you understand how and what your positioning is, cover that aspect. What channels will you use? Once you do that, then you do a research to say, if I have to use that, how much will I spend approximately, right? What are the costs? So if you don't know what the costs are, call up people who do that. Call up an ad agency, say, you know what, I want to put a hoarding outside the airport. How much would you charge me for a week? Right? And he will tell you, I'll charge you 4.5 crores for a week. And then you know, okay, that's how much it's going to cost. Maybe that's not what I want to do. And then you say, okay, I'll advertise it in the paper. So go call up Times of India and say, what would you charge for a 6x4 inch advertisement if I have to do it continuously for 3 days? He would give you a price. Or if you say, no, I want to get into radio one, and radio channel is good because my customer base listens to radios every day, what would be the cost? So that would give you a fair idea of marketing are. And that is something that you might want to use also. Okay, the next question. I hope I answered that, Raisin D'Souza. I'm hoping so.
Hi. So I'm actually a student. I had a query. Am I audible?
Hi.
Yes, please.
Hi, Sanjeev. So Shamima here, BP47. My question is, the market is fairly new and I don't have any famous competitors. For example, now there's Coke for cool drinks, and we have got a lot of brands with a lot of names out there who are quite famous already. So what would you do? How would we approach if the market that we're trying to go inside is quite new in itself? It's quite in its infancy stage and not many people are very aware about it. And it is quite good to raise awareness on it. So how would we go forth into that market and introduce a new product?
So you're talking about a solution, right? I don't know if you have time to talk about how do you market your product, but I think that's a separate section. We could talk about it. But how do you create a marketing plan for that? I can help you with that. So how do you create a marketing plan for a niche segment or a new area that you are? So first and foremost, since you already identified the segment because you say it's a new nascent or it's nascency or infancy as such, I'm assuming you already know the target market, right? So you know the user base and everything else. So first and foremost, you still need to hustle. You need to go talk to them. What is it that they use? Would they use your product? How often would they use it? Would they recommend it to their friends? What is the value they see in that product? If you've already created that product or services, have them use it. Tell them to give you feedbacks, run a survey after some time, go visit them, see who the actual users are. That would give you a fair idea of how that market would react. And you can't, as a student, do it in multiple geographies. But the power of internet and social media is so much that in today's social media, there are a lot of groups on Facebook and on Instagram that have volunteers who would help you take your product or your services and do surveys for you absolutely free of cost. And these are student communities that are trying to help each other. You could use them, right? I don't know what your product or service offerings are, but if that is how you wish to do it, that's what you must do, especially in markets that are of infancy. What I would also strongly suggest is don't be dismissive of the fact that there could be somebody else who's probably thought about it, registered, tried, failed because they did not identify a market and wounded up their business. So try to learn from them. How do you get this information? There are registrar of companies. There's a website you could go to, Ministry of External Affairs, registrar of companies. There are a lot of companies that have registered. The nature of businesses are clearly mentioned. You could pay some $500 and you could get details of any organization, what the value was, who the promoters were, etc. What did they file? Reach out to one of those promoters, pick their name, put it on LinkedIn, see who they are, call them up and say, dude, I see you had started a company about 12 years back and you wounded it up. This was your solution. What happened? What did you experience? So there are various ways and means by which you can gather this information, but you need to hustle to get there. And that would really help you.
That was excellent, sir. Thank you so much. Mr. Sanjeev, there's one more question. It says, how can we carry on our business idea after this event if we don't have proper funding?
You don't need funding. I mean, I don't know who has given you this impression that all businesses need funding. Chinmay runs a mango farm. I don't think he took funding from anybody to start a mango farm. And now he sells those mangoes outside, so he makes money. But that's not his primary mode of thing. It's a hobby, which he thought, you know what. So I don't think funding is required for every business. Imagine if every business was owned by more than 2 people, we wouldn't have seen an Ambani now, right? Or we wouldn't have seen Bill Gates. Fundings are required when you want to expand, when you want to crack open, when you want the momentum to increase, when you want to reach to a larger set of people. What you need today is not about diluting your company. You should understand, as soon as you pick money from someone else, you're diluting your company. That means you're only a part owner now. There is somebody else who owns the business. Ask yourself, is that what you want to do? First and foremost, you need to understand that people will not fund your company just because you have an idea. There are tons and tons of companies that have ideas, right? You have to prove that there is a viable market. You have to prove that there is a need. And then if you say that I cannot produce so many goods because the demand is more than what I can produce, I need somebody to fund the money so that I can achieve my purchase orders, because there are so many POs coming. I can't satisfy the need. Can you please come in and pump in $1 million so that I can actually provide these goods to the people who want it? I don't want them to wait, and I will give you discounted debentures or a part equity of the company or a royalty. And there are various modes in which you can get to that space. But that's interesting that you asked that question. Maybe you're not been listening from the start of Manthan. Dilution is not the only way to run a company. You own the company. It's your baby. You run it. I'll tell you, the best person to ask for money is the parents at home. Try asking them for money and tell them, can you please give me some money? All right. And if they say, yes, I love your idea, I'm backing you up, it's a great way to start. All right. Okay. So yeah. Asita, I hope I answered the question. I need to rush into another meeting. So but I'd really like to thank each one of you. And
thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time and also your effort to make a presentation on this. It was very, I'm sure everybody would benefit from this.
Thank you. God bless
so
you.
much,
And
sir.
all the best
You-
to everyone. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you. And also we have one question that was asked saying how to know about the financial condition of our competitors. For that, one of our juries, that is Mr. Shravan, has answered saying if your competitor is a private company, you can get the data from the MCA database, provided they have regularly filed their returns or accounts. Okay, I'm sure you read it in the chart. And how to react to the sudden surge in demand as a startup. Probably these questions we can take it further after our second speaker, that is Mr. Chinmay Ananda, who is going to talk about finances. He's, as you all know, he's a director and founder for Beehive Analytics, and he's a financial educator, business storyteller, international speaker, and author. Since 2014, Chinmay has trained and consulted over 1,500 business owners and non-financial managers on the subject business finance in Australia, India, China, and Indonesia. Chinmay is also known for research, or his expertise is more on research on failed businesses to discover the common financial mistakes made in businesses, which he has presented to the Australian Taxation Office, ATO, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, Certified Practicing Accountants, the Institutes of Chartered Accountants of India, and Institute of Certified Bookkeepers, and various industry associations and councils. His training programs are accredited by the Institute of Certified Management Accountants, Australia. He has developed the curriculum finance program for which is actually taught in Australian MBA colleges, maybe to mention a few, that is Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology and Deucer Global School of Business and Insight Academy of Entrepreneurs. He has served as the National Treasurer of Professional Speakers Australia between 2018 to 21 and is an active Rotarian. He is a proud owner of 6 failed startup ventures, is what he says. He's proud to have failed so many times. So it prompted him to find out the reason why it happened so. And this made him interview hundreds of entrepreneurs, CFOs, and financial gurus. That made him understand the practical challenges faced by them on a daily basis. He now offers a unique software tool through his new venture, Beehive Analytics Private Limited, that is exclusively developed to assist the top decision makers to make informed, profitable business decisions based on facts and not mere assumptions. Chinmay is the author of this Fundamentals of Financial Statement, which is an Amazon's bestseller, and which is also, which I'm having fun reading this, is what I can say, which is really in very, very simple language, and especially for a person like me who is not from a financial background, it gives a glimpse or idea of how to read the financial statements and to know, especially for you who are going to start a business and becoming entrepreneurs. It's very important to know what is finance is all about and the terminologies that you are familiar when you talk to an accountant or an auditor. It's very important that you understand this. So over to you. Let's welcome Chinmay Ananda, and over to you, Mr. Chinmay.
Thank you, Asita Devangi, for not only for the introduction, but also mentioning about my book. It's good to know that there is someone out there who is reading the book where we are in times of Facebook, where the actual book is something that people may not read, but it's good to know that you're reading it. Apart from Asita Devangi, I can see JP sir, who has got the video on. Hello, JP sir. Good afternoon.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
Other participants, if you are comfortable, please switch on the video camera. It's good to see some faces on the other side.
I would also like to welcome Madhurani Gowda, and also I think Shravan, Mr. Shravan is there. I would like to acknowledge his presence. If there's any juries, any other, Mr. Umesh, if you can just let me inform me, please, if I missed out anybody, mentioning anybody. I think that's it. Please carry on.
Okay.
Someone wants your the name of your book. I want you to repeat again, Chinmay.
Okay, this is the book. Okay.
And the wordings are not visible.
Yeah. Okay.
Chinmay, you repeat and start with your book only.
Yeah. Fundamentals of Financial Statements. Fundamentals of Financial Statements.
Now, I think on Amazon, it's priced pretty high. I think 500 or 1,000 rupees. If you want, I think you can contact Umesh sir, and he can pass on my number. I've got around a few hundred copies here with me. I'll be happy to I think we are giving it for 300 rupees. Anyway, I didn't mean to start my presentation selling my book, but hey, that's marketing, right? Anyway, having said that, see, when it comes to this thing called finance, even Asita Devangi mentioned that for someone like me who doesn't have finance background, I find it challenging. And there is a lot of misconception. And many people ask me, Chinmay, why should I be bothered about understanding numbers when we have an accountant, when we have all this accounting software? Why should I be bothered? I'm a very creative person. I'm a very technical person. Now, let us take a step back. I'm sure Umesh sir has sent you the email and probably reminders on WhatsApp and other medium to communicate, saying that we are going to have this knowledge session on 12th of August, 12 numbers. It starts at 2:30 numbers. Sanjeev sir will be speaking for 60 minutes numbers. And I can see on all the windows here on Zoom, you have got these BP 136, 47, 196, 18, 144 numbers. Now I'm wearing specs. Asita Devangi is wearing specs. JP sir is wearing specs. I see some photo BP 11. Even he is wearing specs. So we know the power of a glass. Numbers. As we are speaking, there is a cricket match being played. I just quickly checked. England has won the toss and India will be batting. How will we know who is winning or losing? By looking at scoreboard, which is numbers. The food we eat. Someone has calculated the calories, vitamins, and then we know accordingly which is good for our body. Numbers. And again, all of you are preparing this business plan competition to get that prize money, numbers. So I would like to make a profound statement, and I would like you to make a note of it or remember it. Almost every decision that we make in our life is directly or indirectly related to numbers. I repeat, almost every decision we make in our life is directly or indirectly related to numbers. However, when it comes to business, for some reason, this is where we say, I'm a non-finance person, and we think it is a job of an accountant or someone who has got finance experience. And we say, I'm an engineer or I'm a technical person, and we try to look away from those numbers. So in today's session, I want to break that misconception. I want to make sure that you understand the basics. And of course, I would like to make sure that we have some fun along with it as we are learning the subject of finance. And this is where people go, Chinmay, how can finance and fun be on the same sentence? Well, that's the title of my book, Fun, Fundamentals of Financial Statements. Now, being born and brought up in India, I'm sure that you have played cricket, or you've definitely watched it, or at least you know the game that I'm talking about. So let us try to understand the basics or try to understand finance by comparing it with the game of cricket. Now, what is the aim of the game in cricket? A team will make sure that they will score more runs than the opponent. That's the aim of the game. In business, aim of the game is to make sure it is making more money than it is spending. In cricket, whenever a bowler is bowling, when a batsman is scoring, there is someone who is recording all those actions, right? What do we call that person? No, again, this will be an interactive session. So feel free to type it in the chat box. I'm not sure if you can unmute yourself. If you can, then yeah, feel free to do so. I would like to keep this interactive. So coming back to the question that I asked. So what do we call that person who is recording all the runs, all the balls that is getting bowled by the bowler? What do we call that person in the game of cricket? You can type it in the chat box. You can unmute yourself.
Mr. Umesh, they can unmute, right?
Zaid is saying cameraman. Really, cameraman, is he recording the runs? What do we call that person who is recording the runs, the balls, or pretty much whatever the action that's happening? And if you have played cricket, probably in your college, there is this book. I don't know whether people still use it, where you score and scratch each and every run as and when the batsman is scoring.
Sir, is it scorers?
Yes. So Setu, that's the word I was looking for. Well, umpire doesn't really keep the score, but pretty much the umpire is saying, hey, this is how the game is supposed to be played. So in the game of cricket, there is a person called scorer who is recording all the runs and balls that are being played. Now, in business, there are some actions that are happening. And this is where people go, oh, no, in business, there's so much of financial transaction that will happen. There's so many things that's happening. We don't know where to start. So this is where, let me break that misconception. If there is one thing that I would like all of you to take away from this session is what I'm going to say next. Please make a note of it, write it down. When it comes to finance, whether it is a small business, medium business, startup, million or billion-dollar business, there are only four things that can happen from finance perspective. Ready? Money comes in, duddu bantu. Money goes out, duddu hoitu. Money is supposed to come in, duddu barbeku. Money is supposed to go out, duddu hogbeku. Mugitaste. These are the only four types of financial transaction that can happen in any business. Money comes in, goes out, supposed to come in, supposed to go out. Whenever one of these financial transactions happen, it has to be recorded. Ivaga business early, a person is recording this. What do you think is the name of that person? What is the technical name given to that person who is recording all this financial transaction? Again, now feel free to unmute yourself, or you can type it in the chat box.
Is it accountant, sir?
Okay, BP165 is saying one. Is it accountant? Well, it is not really accountant. Asita Devangi, probably that is not the email that I wanted you to share. That's my personal email.
Okay,
you can
sorry.
share my business one. Anyway, so in fact, in India, we call them as accountants, but the technical name is called as bookkeeper. I very rarely come across people in India who use this term. We call people who are recording or people who know how to use tally as accountant. But the technical word is bookkeeper. They are keeping the books. Now, just ask yourself, in the game of football, if the scorer, or in the game of cricket, if the scorer is not recording the runs properly, if the scoreboard is not up to date, will we know who's winning or losing? Same thing in business. When the financial transactions are not recorded, how will we know whether a business or a startup is making more money than it is spending, whether it is profitable or not? So this is one of the fundamental basic mistakes that I see in a lot of startups and small businesses. That is, they do not have the latest numbers, or they do not record most of the financial transaction. Either it will be in their head, or they'll write it in some piece of paper or some Excel file, and you ask them, pretty much it's all over the place. So if you do not know the scoreboard, then how do you know the decisions that you're busy making is going to help you win? Now let's go back to cricket. In the game of cricket, there is someone called as an umpire. Now, what is the role of an umpire? To make sure everyone follows the rules and a fair game is played. This role in business to a great extent is played by accountant. Count. They count the financial transactions and they make sure your business, your startup will abide by the rules and regulations set by the taxation office. Now, have you ever seen a batsman or a bowler going and walking up to the umpire and asking, hey, how should I go about bowling the next ball? How should I go about playing the next shot? Should I take a single? Should I hit a four? Then why is that in business we think we should always be over-dependent or dependent on accountants to tell us how to make financial decisions? In fact, this is now, as Sanjeev sir said, sales starts when marketing ends. He also mentioned finance starts when accounting ends. This is where we have to understand finance and accounting are two different things. They are not the same. Accounting is more about keeping records of all of this and making sure that your business is compliant and it follows all the rules and regulations set by the taxation office. After you get those numbers, the decision that you're going to make is more about finance. So let me elaborate more on this. Now, of course, I'm not sure if Shravan is still here, because most of the chartered accountants, whenever I share this, they go, "Oh, Chinma, you can't call us as umpires because we don't just do a typical accountant's job. We also give them advice. We also help them in financial planning. We also help them with consulting." Now, I tell them, yes, I get it. So this is where even we as a startup founder, we should know when we are approaching an accountant. Are we expecting an accountant to do a bookkeeper's job? Are we expecting our accountant to do the compliance work? Or are we also expecting our accountant to give us financial advice, financial planning, or play a role of a CFO, Chief Financial Officer? So we need to be very clear. What is that we want to avail? What kind of service we want from them? Now back to cricket. Before the bowler bowls, before the batsman is going to play the shot, they know the score, they know the situation, which means they know the numbers, and accordingly they will play the game so that it is going to help them win. Same thing in business. When we are making that business decision, do we know how the decision is going to impact the bottom line, which is profit? And this is what finance is all about. So whenever from now on you are going to make a decision in your startup, ask yourself, how will this decision going to impact the bottom line? And this is what finance is all about. Or are you always dependent on someone else to tell you what the score is and tell you if you make this decision, that is what's going to happen? I'm not saying you should not ask for suggestion. I'm not saying you should not ask for opinion. All I'm saying is don't be over dependent. Don't be so ignorant and say that ignorance is bliss. No, when it comes to finance, ignorance is sick. You have to make sure that you understand those basic numbers. Otherwise, it's like you're just hitting the ball and hoping that it is going to help you win the game. Back to cricket. A team wants to be on the winning streak. They want to win the championship. Probably they want to win the World Cup. Same thing in business. We don't start a business to make profit once. We want the business or a startup to be profitable. When I was going through quite a few of the business plan, and also I was at the FKCCI office last week, going through the pitch that was given. And then I found that most of them, it was not a business plan. It was more like a project plan. I mean, of course, you are all selected, but most of the time we had to reject because it was more of a project rather than a business. A business is something that is kind of ongoing and it is profitable. So now the question is, if a business has to be profitable, how are we playing the game so that we are always on that winning streak? We are always ahead of it. Then finally, it is all about knowing where do we want our startup to be or our business to be 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 1 year from now. To know where the business needs to be, we need to understand where are we right now. Now, if you want to go from one place to another, I'm sure most of you will enter it on Google Maps. So what is the first thing it will say? You are here. And then it will say for you to go from here to there, it will take 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever, and it will give you a route. So same thing, for us to know where we want to go or where we want the startup to be in the next 3 months or 6 months or 1 year, first we need to know where are we. And many a times we are always communicating where we are only from sales, revenue perspective. I'm sure you might have heard people saying, oh, this business makes 10 lakhs turnover, 1 crore turnover, 10 crores turnover. Please remember, business is not just about turnover. It is more about leftover. It is not just about how much you make. It is more about how much you keep. So when we say here, we have to understand here from PBT, profit before tax perspective. And we'll be understanding this term in detail when we go through the profit and loss statement in the next probably 20-25 minutes. So first thing is to know where are we from finance perspective. So once we know, oh, okay, this is where we are. Now, some of you might be thinking, but we are a startup. Nothing has happened much. We haven't generated any revenue. So we are kind of zero. Okay, great. You're starting here. And this is where you have to kind of look out for other competitors in the market. What is that they have done? In 3 months, where did they reach? In 6 months, where did they reach? And accordingly work backwards. For example, let's say you have never been to Mysore. And let's say you are in Bangalore. And if you want to go to Mysore, and if you haven't been there, what is the first thing you will do? You'll probably ask someone who's already been there, right? And then, hey, how is the roads now with all this lockdown and so on and so forth? Then accordingly, you'll get those information and then you make those decisions. Let me leave at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock, or instead of driving there, let me go by bus or train. Again, you're looking at numbers and making decisions. Same thing, even if you are a startup with zero revenue. This is where every jury member is encouraging you to do research, search, research, and understand what's happening. Now, once we know we are here, the next thing is to know, why are we still here? How did we get here in the first place? This is where we have to understand what happened. Again, you may not have a lot of numbers to look back because you might still be in the planning stage. Again, you have to do some research. And finally, we are here, we want to go there. There shouldn't be saying that, you know what, 6 months from now or 1 year from now, we'll be making 50 lakhs turnover. Okay, fine. That's one way of measuring a business. But how is it going to impact the bottom line? You should be aware of it as well. So we are here, we want to go there. The obvious question is how? This is where all your strategies, ideas will come into picture. So if I want to go from Bangalore to Mysore, will I drive? Will I take a bus? Will I take a train? Same thing. We are here making zero revenue. We want to go there probably 1 month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 1 year from now. It's like saying to go from Bangalore to Mysore, first I have to go to Ramnagara, and then after that it's Maddur, and then Mandya, Srirangpatna, so on. Same thing. 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And how are you going to go? You come up with all those ideas saying that, oh, we will advertise, we'll do digital marketing, we'll promote it on Facebook, we'll have stall in one of those exhibitions. Great, they're all ideas. How will that decision going to impact the bottom line? For that, you need to understand numbers. And this is what we look for on your business plan in the finance section. Most of you have given those Excel file. I would like you to further revise it from this perspective. Now, in the last 8 to 10 years, I've been playing this game of educating people on the subject finance. And I had the opportunity of meeting many highly successful business owners, entrepreneurs, sometimes few billionaires, and I've seen how they have gone about making decisions. And what I have understood is, end of the day, top decision makers, they would like to know three things at any given point in time. The first thing is they would like to know, where is my company? Where is my business from finance perspective? Second thing they would like to know is, why are we still here? And the third thing they would like to know is, the decisions we made yesterday, the decisions we took today, and the decisions we're planning to take tomorrow, Will it help us to go from here to there or here to somewhere else? And this is what we would like to see on your financial section on the business plan. So 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 1 year from now, 3 years from now, where do you see this business? How much sales are you doing? What are all the expenses? How are you going to get there? And finally, what is the leftover? Now let us look at how this gets presented. Now, before I continue, are there any questions at this stage? Are we good to continue? If we are good to continue, then please give me a thumbs up or a yes in the chat box. Okay, thank you. Okay, I've got only 3 yeses. I'm not sure how many more of you are still in front of
students, it will be very encouraging if you respond. Oh, great. Lovely. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Good to know. So let's continue. Now, let us try to understand the finance by taking this as a simple example. Let us say you decide to have a coffee stall, like a mobile coffee stall. Now, to start this business, to start this venture of yours, what are some of the resources that you would require? Now, you can type it in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and answer this question. So what are some of the resources that are required to start this mobile coffee shop?
The proper location, like where people engagement will be more.
Okay, so you would like to know where you want to position this or have this particular stall location. Okay, great. What else would you like to know, and what are the resources that you would need? So Jayanta is saying setup, knowledge about making coffee. Person who makes a good coffee. Okay. Water, milk, coffee powder, and such other raw materials. So now we are talking about the ingredients. Okay, great. What else? Accessories like raw materials. Yes.
There is a secret recipe which is actually making my coffee different than others.
Or maybe having that USP, no, unique selling proposition which has got that unique taste. You can brand it, you know what, the taste of this, so that people can talk about it. Great, thank you for sharing that, Setu.
Creating best way to do that with less time.
Creating
so I can offer more.
Okay, so
basically creating
systems, process. Okay, so
finding the best place where your coffee will be sold more.
Okay,
that
so
means more coffee lovers will be there.
Great. Okay, and someone has typed in saying person who knows the maths and pricing. Okay, that's good. How about the coffee machine? How about this vehicle, or whatever you want to call it? We need that as well, right? That's the main fundamental thing that we need before we can even make coffee. See, this is how I would like you to look at your business plan or the idea that you have come up with. Because if you don't consider all of these resources, then eventually you'll have to buy it. If you haven't mentioned it on your business plan, suddenly, let's say it takes 1 lakh to have this ready. Where will you go and find that 1 lakh? Now, I understand if it is 5,000, 10,000, few rupees here and there, then you might say miscellaneous and unforeseen expense and you can add it. But substantial things, resources cannot be ignored. And this is where you have to clearly understand what does it take? What are all the resources that are required? Now, good to see that quite a few of you have mentioned things like the uniqueness and marketing and location and things like that. Now, I want you to understand this thing before we continue understanding the financial statements. And that is, let us say this is you, who is going to be a busy startup founder running from one end to another, making sure that you're taking care of marketing, you're taking care of your customers, you're taking care of selling, you're taking care of finance, you're even taking care of all the cleaning work. You're like that all-rounder. If you ask a startup founder, they will say that I had to do everything. I was like that all-rounder. I was always busy. And let us say this is your business or a startup. The first thing that I would like you to understand when it comes to even opening a financial statement is you are not your business. Now, you might have co-founders with you. Doesn't matter. Make sure all the co-founders, business owners are treated separately and the business is treated separately. Two reasons. First reason is those 4 financial transactions. Do you remember? Can someone quickly repeat? What are those 4 types of financial transaction? No, please unmute yourself.
Money comes in, money
Yes.
goes out.
Yes.
Supposed to come in and
Yes.
supposed to goes out.
Great. Thank you, Zaid, for answering that. Now, whenever these 4 financial transaction happens, it gets recorded, right? And it is always recorded from business perspective, not from business owner's perspective. Most of the time, people get confused. I'm not sure if you have made an attempt to look at a financial statement. Many attempts, people get confused when they're reading a financial statement is simply because they're trying to understand it from business owner's perspective, but it is actually prepared from business perspective. The second reason is, now let us say there is a newborn baby. And if you go and ask the parent, which is the most beautiful baby in the world, what do you think the parent will say? Of course, my baby is the most beautiful baby in the world. Because there is so much of emotional connection between the parent and the baby. But imagine an arrogant man like me, I will look at the baby and I go, ooh, that's an ugly baby. How do you think the parent will feel? They'll feel hurt, they'll feel sad, and they'll be really disappointed, and there'll be a lot of anger. They'll not take it with the right spirit. Because again, there is so much of emotional connection. Unfortunately, many a times we bring in the same emotion even to our business idea, to our business, to our startup. And we say, this is my business idea, this is my startup. This is the most beautiful baby in the world. And what do you think your coaches, consultants, well-wishers, and the market, the customers, they might say when you take it to the market, they go, oh, I don't like that idea. I don't think I'll buy your product or service. Probably this is what happened last week when you were pitching and then the jury was giving their comments. Most of you may not have taken it. If you felt a bit hurt with whatever the jury had to say, then I'm afraid you are too much emotionally connected to your business idea. So learn to detach and say, hey, this is me, business owner, startup founder, whatever you want to call yourself, and this is my business. Collectively, how can we make sure we can grow this business? Now, business startup has to be used as the vehicle. This is the vehicle that will take you from here to there. A vehicle will take you from Bangalore to Mysore. Same thing, this is a vehicle. How can we make sure we build this vehicle so that we can take it from revenue 0 to revenue 1 crore or 10 crores or 1,000 crores, I don't know. Now, looking from business perspective, I asked you what are some of the resources. You said many things, ingredients, raw materials, way to have this location, so on and so forth. All of those can be brought under 2 headings: financial capital and intellectual capital. Financial capital is all about how a business will go about bringing funds, borrowing funds, and how will it use it and manage it. Intellectual capital is all about the know-how. Someone said, how can I make sure my coffee will be better than the other coffees in the surrounding area? Or which is that location where most of the customers are there? So the know-how, knowing how to position this, the marketing, even knowing what kind of suppliers, where to procure or buy those coffee powder, milk, sugar, so on and so forth. So looking from business perspective, it is taking financial capital and intellectual capital, and either it is selling a product or a service or both product or service. So broadly speaking, only 3 types of businesses, Business that makes money by selling or pretty much taking a raw material, converting it to a finished product and making money by selling that finished product. Business that makes money by offering some kind of a service, and business that makes money by selling a product and offering service to that particular product. Doesn't matter what type of business idea that you have got, whether you're selling a product or service or both, The aim of the game remains the same, and that is to make sure you are selling your product or service for more than what it is costing you. For that, first we need to know what is that we are selling and for how much we are selling. Because in some of the business plan that we received, it was very difficult to understand how are they going to make money? What is that they are going to sell? So now I have got a question, and I would encourage more than half of the participants to answer, if not all. I would like you to answer this question. How will your startup make money? In one sentence, I would like you to type in saying that my startup will make money by selling. What is that you're selling? Or let me help you here. Fill in this blank or blanks. If we are paid rupees, whatever it is, by our customer, we will give them dash. For example, if you pay me 300 rupees as a customer, I will be giving you a copy of my book. If you pay me, let's say, 10,000 rupees, I will give you access to my online program. If you give me, let's say, 50 rupees, I'll give you a cup of coffee. So which means there are two things that I would like you to answer. What is that price at which you're selling your product or service? Is it 5 rupees, 10 rupees, 50 rupees, 1,000, 10,000? I don't know, 3 lakhs? Because some of you said you want to manufacture some kind of a machine and equipment. So if that is the case, what is the unit price, the selling price? And what is that you're going to give to them? If you're struggling to answer this question, then I'm afraid you'll have to seriously think about your business plan.
So yeah, shall I answer it, sir?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So at the starting, you don't need to pay me anything. So only when you get the job, you need to pay me some sort of commissions. Yeah. So this is how we propose for our customers. At the starting, we don't charge him anything. Yeah.
Okay, so in this case, you're saying that if we help you get a job, then you'll be paying 2% or 5% of your salary, first salary.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. Business plan 168 is saying 15,000 septic tank. So if someone pays them 15,000 rupees, they will give them a septic tank. Good to know. 121, Prasad is saying we'll give them rent, lease, goods, used bike. Prasad, I'm afraid I'm not able to understand what is that you're selling.
Sorry. Let me explain. We will be either giving him a used bike or rent. If you want for around 1 to 2 days or 6 months, we will be renting that same bike. He wants the bike for intermediate tenure, we will be leasing that same bike. So we would be.
So per day, how much is the rent?
Per day around 160. Let's take one Bajaj Pulsar 150.
Okay, fine. So which
with 200 kilometers.
Fine. So that means in your case, you'll have to be really on top of numbers because your selling price will keep changing.
Yeah.
Because you'll say, if you pay us 160 rupees, we'll give you Bajaj Pulsar for 1 day. If you give us, let's say 500 rupees, then we'll give you Bajaj Pulsar for 1 week. If you give us, I don't know, 3,000 rupees, we'll give you Bajaj Pulsar for a month or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you give 35,000 rupees, we'll lease that for 3 years. And you'll be paying around 200 rupees subscription fees per month.
Good to know. Good to know. Now, Zaid is saying if we are paid 2,800 rupees, we'll give them our water saving device. Okay, great. See, this is something that you need to be very clear. And no, Sanjeev sir mentioned about that elevator pitch. And this is something that people would like to know. What is that you're selling? How will your startup make money? Now, once you know, okay, this is what we are going to cost, or this is what it will cost, then the question is, who are those people who are ready to buy? And then you'll have to think of marketing, and that is how it comes. Okay, let's continue, as I'm afraid we are running out of time and I've got quite a few things to cover. Now, when it comes to financial capital, business borrows. The key word is it borrows from two types of people, insiders and outsiders. Insiders are you, startup founders. And this is where some of the time people go, Chinna, what do you mean my business is borrowing from me? Yes, your business is borrowing from you because you are not your business. So this is where I mentioned that you have to treat yourself separately and your startup separately. So insiders are business owners, your business partners, your investors, and the three famous F's, family, friends, and fools. So these are the people, insiders, who take a share in the company. Outsiders are predominantly from a financial institution like a bank. So whenever business needs money, it wants to borrow, it is either borrowing from insiders or outsiders. Now we know business will not always borrow money. Sometimes it will borrow raw materials and services. Going back to that coffee example, mobile coffee shop example, when we buy the ingredients, the coffee powder, sugar, so someone will be supplying it regularly. Do you think they will ask for the money immediately? Most of the time they will not. They will give an invoice saying, here is probably 10 kgs of coffee powder, pay me after 7 days, pay me after 1 month. Now that is known as credit term. Money supposed to go out. Now someone mentioned they sell septic tank. Now if they have to manufacture that septic tank, they'll have to get some raw material, and someone is supplying them raw materials. Now that raw material supplier will not ask for the money immediately. They will say, pay us after 30 days or 45 days or 60 days, depending on how you have negotiated. So now business has not borrowed money, but it has borrowed its kind. It has either borrowed raw materials or service. Now Prasad mentioned about hiring the bike. For that, he needs to have an online platform, a website, definitely an app. So there will be someone who will be developing an app. Let's say he has outsourced it to a company. So now that company will say every month you pay us 50,000 or 1 lakh, depending on whatever the charges that they have negotiated. So it is borrowing the service for 1 month. Now business again takes those resources. It is either selling a product or service, or both product or service. So now let us see how this gets recorded on something called as a balance sheet. This is one of the financial statements. So whenever people refer to financial statements, there are 3 types of financial statements. One of them is balance sheet. As I said, business owner has to be treated separately. Business has to be treated separately. Business borrows money from insiders and outsiders. Let us see where and how it gets recorded on a balance sheet. Do you know the 2 main headings on a balance sheet? If yes, please type it in or answer by
Assets
yes.
And liabilities.
Correct. You got it right, Prasad. So the 2 main headings on a balance sheet are liabilities and assets. Now, I'm not a huge fan of using those accounting jargon. Liabilities, in other words, sources of funds. Where has the business sourced its money? Now, business has sourced money from insiders. Insiders' money is known as capital. If it is more than one, they'll be sharing the capital. Outsiders' money, what do you call the money when you borrow from a bank?
Loan.
What do you call?
Loan.
Exactly, loans. So money from insiders are called as capital or share capital. Money borrowed from outsiders are called as loans. They are sources of funds. It comes under liabilities. The reason it is called liabilities is business is liable to pay the bank. Business is liable to pay back its investors sometime in the near future. Okay, business has borrowed money or sourced money. What will you do with it? Assets is nothing but uses of funds. In that mobile coffee example, we will buy that particular vehicle, we'll buy a coffee machine, we'll buy those utensils, fixed assets, we'll buy that machinery, we'll buy office furniture, we'll buy a laptop. Uses of funds, assets, they all come under fixed assets. Now, there are certain liabilities, certain assets that we will not be using it on a long term. For example, Under liabilities, we discussed in the previous slide, it is not always money, it will also borrow raw materials and services. Though they get recorded under current liabilities as payables. Current liabilities. Currently, business is liable to pay someone within the current financial year. When does the financial year start here in India?
April.
1st of April, ends on 31st of March. In countries like US, it starts on 1st of January, 31st of December it ends. In Australia, it is 1st of July. Now, it doesn't matter. Every country will have its own financial year. In that financial year, if something has to be paid to one of our suppliers, vendors, or to someone, then that gets recorded as payables, current liabilities. Money is supposed to go out. Similarly, under assets, we have current assets mainly made of three things. Debtors are none other than receivables from customers. So let us say now Prasad, he will be renting out the bike. Now, I'm not sure what their model is, whether they take money first and then rent out the bike, or pretty much they say pay us 20-30% advance and then pay the rest 70% later. If it is the second one, where the customer is paying later, then they would be recorded under debtors, receivables. Money is supposed to come in. Again, someone mentioned about the septic tank. So after pretty much giving them the septic tank, the customer may not pay immediately. They'll say, give me 15 days time or 30 days time. Money is supposed to come in under debtors as receivables. Inventory, mainly in manufacturing businesses or even in that mobile coffee shop, raw materials like coffee powder, sugar. If it's in the storeroom, then it would be under inventory as raw materials. If you have already manufactured something, the end product, then that would be again under inventory as finished goods. Finally, cash in hand, cash in bank. When it comes to balance sheet, these are the main headings and subheadings that one has to understand. Of course, if you open a real life balance sheet, you might think there's so many transactions. Please don't get overwhelmed or scared. All of them, either it will be a liability or an asset, and accordingly, it will be categorized and subcategorized. Any questions so far, or are we good to continue? I'll probably take that silence as a next. Yes. Umesh sir, just quickly wanted to check with you. Is it okay if I stretch by another 10 more minutes?
Sir, no issues.
Okay.
Yes,
no
please,
issues.
you can carry on, Chinmay. Because we have time. See, actual time was given till 4:30, and from 4:30 onwards is question and answer. So you have enough time.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. So in that case, I'll be encouraging you to ask questions. You don't have to wait till the end of the session. So that's why I'm making sure each and every part, if you've got any question, you can ask, or else I'll be more than happy to revisit any slide. So let me continue. So this is balance sheet. The reason balance sheet is called balance sheet is because the total liabilities, whatever that number, let's say it is 10 lakhs. If total liabilities is 10 lakhs, then even the total assets should be 10 lakhs. Which means the total liabilities and total assets has to be same, which that is when they say balance sheet has balanced. So all the sources of funds, we know where it has been used. If it is not used, then definitely it will be sitting in the bank as cash. So we know where it is. Now let us look at profit and loss statement. Now, what are the two main headings under profit and loss statement? Who would like to answer this? Do you know the two main headings under profit and loss? Don't say profit and loss. So when you sell your product or service, money comes in. What do you call that?
Credit.
Okay. Someone is saying costs and revenue. See, of course, you're all right in your own perspective, but again, I don't like to use all those jargon. It is simply expenses and incomes. Incomes, money comes in. Incomes, money comes in. Expenses are outflow of money, when money goes out. Now, can you give me some examples of expenses that you might incur in your startup idea? So what are some of the expenses?
Service and maintenance.
Yes,
Sourcing
service and
bike.
maintenance.
Manufacturing.
So can you break it down when you say manufacturing? So who will be manufacturing it?
Workers,
So what is that you pay them?
machineries,
You pay them
salaries,
salary, you
maintenance,
pay them wages. What else?
electricity,
Electricity. So all the utility bills, electricity
rent,
bill, gas bill, water bill. Yes, you
rent,
will also have to pay rent if you're hiring an office space or a manufacturing space. Here are the raw materials that you will be consuming. Advertising, marketing. So all of this. So
packaging, transformation,
sorry, what was the Jayanta?
packaging and transformation.
Exactly, logistics, courier charges, transportation, fuel. And if you have borrowed money from the bank, you have to pay monthly interest. So all of this will come under expenses. Outflow, money goes out. Incomes, mainly it would be under sales. So if your business is making money from its core business activity, then we call it, we record it under sales. The reason I'm so specific is simply because there are times when your business might also make money outside your core business activity. In that mobile coffee example, because let's say we are going to have it in front of a college, or we are going to have it in front of a corporate office. So morning we might be in one location, afternoon we might move that vehicle into another location. If someone decides to advertise, then again money comes in, but that should be recorded under other incomes. If we decide to sell that vehicle and then buy a new one, again we are selling that vehicle and getting money. Money comes in, right? It should be recorded as other incomes. So clearly you should break it up and say how much money will come from your product 1, product 2, product 3, and are you also going to make money outside your core business activity, like other income 1, other income 2. This is what we need to see. Don't put everything in under one bucket. We need to see that categorization, and it will definitely help you further as well. Now, what is that a cricket coach or any sport coach will do after the game is played? They will look at each and every action that happened on the field, which means they're analyzing, looking at the statistics. So which means they're dissecting, and then that is how they help the player to improve. Same thing we want to see here. How much money did you make from product 1, product 2, product 3? Expenses. How much was paid to your frontline workers? How much was paid to the people in the office? Everything has to be clear. Now, simple definition of profit on a profit and loss. They say income minus expense, and you have got the profit. Now, let me introduce some jargon here. Sales is called top line. Profit is called bottom line. Now, which do you think is more important? Top line or bottom line? Is sales more important or is profit more important in a business? You can type it in the chat
Depends.
box. Depends. Okay, that was not an optional answer.
Bottom line, sir.
Bottom line, okay. Yes.
If you
Business is all about bottom line. I understand there cannot be a bottom line without a top line. The point I would like to make here is don't just get excited with any sales. We should be interested in only those sales with those profit margin, with those credit term that is going to have a positive impact on profit. What is the point of just increasing sales if it is not having a positive impact on profit? Well, of course, if you are in the game of valuation, then you have taken millions and billions from investors and you're burning that cash because you want to create that monopoly and you want to increase the valuation of the company, then yes, it's a different ball game. But at least initially, you should make sure business is going to make some kind of a profit through the sales. And how will we know whether a business is making profit? By recording numbers, by understanding how much each and every activity is going to cost. The moment you start renting a property, clock starts ticking, whether there is night curfew, whether it is lockdown, you eventually will have to pay. The moment you borrow money from a bank, you have to pay interest. So money never sleeps. The moment you want to advertise, digital marketing, whatever, pay-per-click, you want to put flyers, everything is going to cost. Every activity has got some kind of a cost associated. The question is, do you know that? Are you aware of each and everything? This is where you have to break it down. And for that, we need to understand a term called as contribution. Let us see what that is. Now, expenses, costs, we are further dividing it or categorizing it as variable cost and fixed cost. Variable cost, the name itself is saying it varies, which means 1 month it might be more, 1 month it might be less, depending on sales, which means any expense that is directly related to sales in making that product or servicing that product is called variable. It comes under variable. For example, in that coffee shop, raw materials like coffee powder, sugar, milk, they're all variable expenses. The more coffee we make, the more coffee powder will get consumed. It varies along with sales. Fixed cost remains fixed. Rent, fixed. Salary, to a great extent, is fixed. Utility bills, again, to a great extent, it is fixed. Interest, if we have to pay to the bank, fixed. So we have got variable cost, we have got fixed cost, and that is what we would like to see even in the breakdown on your business plan. How much of it is variable, how much of it is fixed. Some of it will be partially variable and fixed, so don't overcomplicate it. If you're not sure, it's all right. You can put it under fixed cost for the time being. Simple definition of profit is sales minus expense. Now we are dividing or categorizing expense as variable and fixed. Contribution is sales minus only the variable cost. Now, profit becomes contribution minus fixed cost, which means we have sales minus variable cost will give us contribution. In other words, if you take all the products that you're making, and if you know how much it is going to cost you to make those products or sell that particular product, it will give you gross profit. Contribution is a term used for 1 unit. For example, with Prasad, he should know what will be the contribution if people are hiring the bike only for 1 day. If they are hiring for 2 days, 1 week, 1 month, again, he should know how much it is going to cost, how much the cost will vary, and what will be the gross profit. So if an investor is asking what is the GP margin, they're referring to this. They want to know, do you know how much it is going to cost? Let us understand this better by going back to that example and looking at numbers. So let us say you're selling that 1 cup of coffee. It's a very unique coffee, and you have that marketing behind it saying coffee beans are procured from whatever hilly stage. I don't know. You come up with that story, you make it special, and if you're selling 1 cup of coffee for 250 rupees, and if it is going to cost you to make that cup of coffee 100 rupees, that will be your variable cost. Contribution is sales minus variable cost, 250 minus 100, which is 150. Let us say fixed cost, like your rent and salary, whatever it is, which will always remain fixed, it is 10,000. So if you're selling only 1 cup of coffee, business will make a loss or a negative profit of 9,850. What do you think will happen if 2 cups of coffee is sold? How much will be the sales if 2 cups of coffee is sold? You can type it in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself. If 2 cups of coffee is sold, how much will be your sales,
500.
your revenue? Yes, it would be 500. What will be the variable cost?
200.
So variable cost will vary. The more cups of coffee you make, the more raw materials, ingredients will be consumed. Now contribution will become 300. How much will be your fixed cost?
10,000.
Exactly. Fixed cost will remain fixed. Now the loss has reduced to 9,700. In fact, I would have given you some time to do this calculation as we are running out of time. Let me give you the answers. If 3 cups of coffee is sold, then it would be 750. Variable cost will again vary by another 100, so it will be 300. Contribution is now 450. Fixed cost will remain fixed. Now the loss is 9,550. If it is 10 cups of coffee, 2,500 would be your sales. The contribution would be 1,500. Fixed cost will remain fixed, and business will be making 8,500 loss. Now, as a startup founder, as a business owner, what is that number that you would like to know? So you have all these numbers, but what is that one critical number that you would like to know? Exactly. You would like to know how much coffees am I supposed to sell so that we hit the break-even number, where this, which is in red, becomes 0 and start then becoming green. Break-even point. The reason business is making a loss in the previous example is because contribution is less than fixed cost. Yes, contribution is less than fixed cost. That is why business is making loss. So whenever contribution is less than fixed cost, business makes a loss. Whenever contribution is equal to fixed cost, that's when you hit the break-even point. When the contribution is more than fixed cost, business starts making profit. Again, to know this, we have to understand numbers. At what price are we selling? How much is it really costing us to make this particular product or service? What are all the fixed costs and how much are we supposed to sell? Numbers, 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 numbers. To calculate the break-even point, the simple formula is fixed cost by contribution divided by contribution per unit. How much was the fixed cost? 10,000 rupees. How much is the contribution per unit for 1 unit? It was 150. So 10,000 divided by 150 is 66.66, which means when the 66th cup of coffee is sold, business is still making a loss of 100 rupees. When the 67th coffee is sold, it starts making profit of 50 rupees. And then it increases. So again, on your business plan, we would like to know, what is this number? How long will it take to hit this number? Can you achieve it in the next 3 months, 6 months? I don't know. Again, this is, at least have you even thought about it? Have you done some kind of a working? This graph will help you understand it better. So let's say this is variable cost and this is fixed cost. Variable cost plus fixed cost is your total cost. And let us say this is sales. So more sales we do, more will be the variable cost. This is the portion where business is making a loss. Initially, it was 9,850, and then you started selling more and more cup of coffee. When that 67th cup of coffee was sold, business hit the break-even point. After that, business starts making profit. Now I use green screen, so I cannot have anything green, otherwise it becomes transparent. That's why it is in blue. But this blue patch is where you can see it is becoming bigger and bigger, wider and wider. So now I have a question for you. Ideally, should we aim to hit or achieve the break-even point earlier during the month or later during the month, or it doesn't really matter? So break-even point, should we aim to achieve it faster or later, or it doesn't even matter?
As soon as possible.
Exactly, as soon as possible. Because if the break-even point, let's say if you're achieving the break-even point on 25th on an average of every month, you're left with another 5 more days. Before that, again, you start from 0 because you have got your fixed costs. But if you're achieving the break-even point, let us say on 15th of every month, you're left with another 15 days to leverage and make more profit. And effectiveness is, how can I make sure that 15th day becomes 14th day, 13th day? For that, again, we have to look at numbers, analyze it. So let us now look at a breakdown of profit and loss statement. Top line sales, let us say it is 1 lakh. What do you think will come after that? After sales, to whom do you think we should be paying? Or probably let me ask you that question. Who are the people who would like a share of that 1 lakh? You have sold 1 lakh cups of, or not cups of coffee, you have sold coffee and you have made 1 lakh. You haven't paid anyone. So who are all the people that you would have to pay, or you should be paying?
The founders.
The founders. Okay. So
Investment. Upcoming investment.
founders. When you say upcoming investment, I didn't get that. So someone has typed in employee. Yeah. Yes. Who else needs to be paid? Founders. I'll put investors also here. Rent.
Expenses.
Sorry, what was that?
Expenses.
So expenses. So can you break it down? Or shall we say, let's say this is a variable expense, and let's call it as a fixed. Sorry, this is fixed expense, rent and everything.
Repayment of loan.
Variable expense. Okay, everything will come under expenses. So banks, yes, we'll have to pay bank the interest. Who else? Vendors. So pretty much people who have supplied raw materials. So suppliers, vendors. Anybody else? Marketing operations. Well, we'll kind of put them under expenses. Who else would like to have a share? Taxes, exactly, the tax man. You have to pay tax because they say, hey, we are providing you this no kind of an environment which is safe. We give you water, we give you all those back-end things we take. So we would like you to give us some share of the profit that you would have made. So even tax needs to be paid. So we have A, founders, we have B, fixed expenses, we have C, variable expenses, we have D, banks, we have E, vendors and suppliers, and we have F, tax. Who should be paid first, looking from a profit and loss statement perspective?
Employees.
Expenses.
So which expense, variable or fixed?
Variable.
Okay. Employees fixed. Okay. After, let's say, variable, who else needs to be paid after you pay your variable expenses?
Suppliers.
Some of you are saying loan, some of you are saying suppliers. Okay. Who else would?
Taxes.
Taxes. Do you pay tax immediately after paying them, or do you have to pay others? Someone is saying tax at the last. As we are running out of time, we will have them. After fixed expenses, you will pay bank interest, and then you will pay tax. And finally, even though you mentioned founders needs to be paid, they are the people who will be paid at the end. Let us understand it better in this simple breakdown. So sales minus variable cost. Of course, in this variable cost, it includes the suppliers as well. Sales minus variable cost will give us gross profit. Gross, putting everything together, whatever you're selling, how much is the profit business has made, GP. When you convert this into percentage, it would be 60%. And this is something that an investor would like to know, or in this case, the judges, the jury would like to know. What's your gross profit margin? Then you pay your fixed cost or operating expenses, your rent, the salary, utility bills. This will give you something called as Ebitda. I'm sure accountants might have used this if you have spoken to them. Now, if you haven't heard this, don't get too overwhelmed. It is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. As I said, please don't get overwhelmed. Let us look at D and A, depreciation and amortization. Now you mentioned all of this. Now to make a cup of coffee, definitely we will need a coffee machine, right? Now the question is, when you have bought this coffee machine, how can we associate a cost? How can we associate a cost so that we know how much it is going to cost us to make a cup of coffee? And the answer is, or the method that is used is depreciation. Now, I don't want to get into the technicality of it because accountants, they do the depreciation, but I just want you to get an idea. Now, there are two types of method. One is called a straight line method, another called as diminishing method when it comes to depreciation. Like, for example, if this coffee machine was bought at 10,000 rupees, and if we can make 10,000 cups of coffee, and if we have already made 1,000 cups of coffee, how many more cups of coffee can we make using this? Another 9,000, right? So 1,000 is already made, so consumed. This is that is left. So this 1,000 in percentage wise is 10%. This is 90%. So this 10% becomes the depreciation. Now, again, I don't want you to really break your head if you haven't got this, but I just want you to know when calculating profit and loss, there has to be an element of depreciation that needs to be taken into consideration. Especially in Prasad's business, every time someone is going to take that bike, well, he might know how much fuel is being used, so that becomes an expense. But how is he going to associate a cost? So this is where the wear and tear of the bike has to be taken into consideration. So he needs to know the depreciation value. Now, you don't have to break your head. The taxation office will have depreciation value for each and every asset. If it is heavy equipment, in machines like big machines in manufacturing, they depreciate by 10 to 20% every year. If it is office furniture, they depreciate by 30 to 40%. If it is your laptop and other IT hardware, they depreciate by 60 to 70% because technology becomes obsolete. Again, I don't want you to get too overwhelmed. All I want you to understand is there has to be the depreciation value that needs to be taken into consideration. If you do not know, you may not know how to do the calculation, ask the help of an accountant. Depreciation is for tangible assets. Amortization is for intangible assets. So out of Ebitda, DA is taken into consideration. Now we look at EBIT, earnings before interest and tax, also known as PBIT, profit before interest and tax. As we discussed in that payment method, it has to be interest to the bank we need to pay. So if it is 2,500, then we arrive with PBT, profit before tax. If you remember the cricket example, we said we are here and we have to look from PBT perspective. This is what I was referring. This is the number I was referring. Profit before tax. So it is 17,500. And depending on the tax bracket, let's say it is 30%, then business is expected to pay 30% tax on 17,500. And whatever is left becomes net profit or profit after tax. And with this net profit, to whom do you think this net profit belongs to? So this 12,250, to whom do you think this belongs to?
Still depends. If I want to invest again into the business, I should invest it again.
Correct. But this 12,250 belongs to you as a business owner, you as a co-founder. It belongs to the investors. However, we can't take all of the money out of the business because, as Prasad said, we have to reinvest. If I have to grow the business, if I have to expand the business, instead of having one coffee shop, if I have to have two coffee shops, or in Prasad's case, instead of having 50 Pulsar bikes, now if they want to acquire 100 Pulsar bikes, then more money is required. Either if they have managed to make a healthy net profit and have cash, They can reinvest this back into the business. So that would be indirect investment by the business owner. Or again, the business has to go borrow from insiders or outsiders. Now, when Sanjeev sir said you don't have to necessarily borrow or kind of get funds from the investor, the point he was trying to make is if your business is already making a healthy profit, net profit, then you can use this money to reinvest in the business. If you are not able to generate net profit, and this is what happens with a lot of multinational companies like Ola and Uber and Swiggy and things like that, because they're spending too much of money in marketing. There is so much of overheads. So this is where they may not be able to make that money. And that's why they are always constantly knocking the door of the investors. So you need to know this, so that when you are forecasting, saying 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 1 year from now, can your business fund itself? If not, again, we would like to know if the money that you're going to get 5 lakhs in this competition, if you run out of that 5 lakhs, what will you do 6 months from now? What's your plan B? What's your plan C? Are you going to go and ask for investors? Do you think investors would be ready to invest? Can you ask a bank? Or can you somehow make it self-sustainable for a while? So now let us understand what exactly is profit. Because we talk about profit, profit, profit. Let us say here is a company that has made for 40,000 in sales. So they have got a machinery for 50,000. Raw materials is 20,000. Salary is 5,000. So profit is 15,000. So you have profit and loss and you have balance sheet. Of course, here we need to know from where the 50,000 came, but let's not complicate it. Let us keep it simple. Do you think that 15,000 is the actual profit for this business? Yes, no? Or are we missing something under expenses? So we have raw materials, variable cost, variable expense. We have salary. Let us say it's a fixed expense. Let us say there was not other expenses like rent and things like that. Are we missing something, or do you think 15,000 is the actual profit?
So the administrative expense.
So let's say it's all kind of taken care. Looking at what we have.
Depreciation.
Exactly. We haven't taken depreciation into consideration. So if this depreciation, let us say, now, okay, let me take a step back and emphasize on this. All you have to understand is whenever money is going out of the business, either it becomes an expense or it creates an asset, as simple as that. If I am in a rented house, every month, end of the month, I have to pay rent to the landlord, expense. But if I have kind of taken a business loan or a home loan and I've got this house in my name, every month I have to pay the bank. And then it is going to create an asset. So whenever money goes out, either it becomes an expense or creates an asset. Now, if I want to buy a bike, I can go to a showroom and pay 1 lakh and get a bike, asset. But if I say, you know what, I don't want a bike, I want to hire a bike, I'll go to Prasad, give 100 or 500 or 1,000 rupees and I can hire, which becomes an expense. So whenever money goes out, either it becomes an expense or creates an asset. We have to understand a term called expenditure. Expenditure is a spending that either becomes an expense or an asset. So please do not think profit is only income minus expense. Profit is income minus expenditure. So that is when we have to understand the depreciation. So let us say this company has purchased machine for 50,000, raw materials for 20,000, paid salary 5,000. So it is taking all of this. Let us say it has sold furniture for 40,000. Now we have to understand depreciation, which is consumed portion. How much of that equipment was consumed? How much of that asset was consumed? This is where the taxation office will have depreciation value, as I mentioned, for each and every asset. Now the question is, how many times can this machine be used? It's like asking you buy a new car, how many times will you be using the car? You'll say it depends who the manufacturer is, how well someone is maintaining it, where it is serviced. Same thing for every asset. Now you might use a laptop for 3 years, or you might drop it and damage it in 6 months. You don't know. So same thing, but some depreciation value has to be associated. So let us say it is 5,000 is the depreciation, 10%. The equipment is not worth 50,000 anymore, it is 45,000. It's like you buy a bike for 50,000. After 6 months, you can't sell it for 50,000 because they're like, it has depreciated. So this depreciation comes under expense. Now the profit is not 15,000, it is 10,000 rupees. But let us take a look at the cash in the bank. 40,000 money came in. 50,000 money went out, 20,000 money went out, 5,000 money went out. Cash in the bank is minus 35,000 rupees. Profit and loss statement is saying business made a profit of 10,000 rupees. Cash in the bank is 35,000 rupees. Where is the money? Show me the money. So this is why we have to understand the difference between profit and money. Profit doesn't mean business has cash in the bank, it has got money in the bank. Never confuse profit with cash. Most of you in your forecast on the Excel file, you are saying we make so much sales and this is the net profit. Yes, that might be net profit, but that may not be cash, because you might take the money in the bank and you might go and buy an asset. That is what has happened here. 50,000 has gone out to buy that machine. It is certainly possible for a business to make profit and may not have cash in the bank. And this is what has happened because of the COVID situation. Most of the profitable businesses, they were making profit, but suddenly they ran out of cash. Like one of our family business, we manufacture carton boxes. So we sell those boxes, and we have got quite a few people who like bakery and those kind of people who make these pastries for 5-star hotels. Suddenly, because of COVID, 5-star hotels did not have any people staying in the hotel. Were they profitable? Yes, they were making profit. But suddenly, because of COVID, no one is going to the hotel. They didn't have cash coming in. They were not able to pay the pastry person, and the pastry person in turn was not able to pay us for the boxes we supplied. Did we make profit? Yes. But have we got cash? No. Even the other way, it is possible, where business might be making loss, but it might have some cash in the bank. They might have sold a property or a machine, and the cash might be sitting in the bank. So never confuse profit with cash. So if profit doesn't mean money, are we in business to make profit, or are we in business to make money? Again, the prime objective is to make profit. However, only half the battle is won by making profit. Another half will be won by generating cash. For that, there is another critical, the third financial statement that needs to be prepared, called cash flow statement. It is not something compulsory by any taxation office, and that is why most people do not prepare. And especially small to medium scale businesses, they don't even look at profit and loss and balance sheet most of the time. And they're busy playing the game without even looking at the scoreboard, thinking that they're winning. But if you really want to be effective and efficient and successful, then we need to also maintain a cash flow statement, because cash is king. So I've got another slide where I've got a list of questions. Make a note of it. These are questions that I would like you to ask yourself when you are now further revising your business plan. Before you pitch to the jury in the next round, ask these questions to yourself. What is your revenue model? Some of you have answered saying that we'll be selling this product or this service. Be very clear at what price you'll be selling, how your business will be making money, who your customer is, who is going to rent those Bajaj Pulsar bike, who is going to buy that septic tank, who is going to avail whatever service that you're offering. When do you start to sell? Now, before Prasad starts selling, they might have to spend 3 months or 6 months developing that particular software, the platform. So it might take 6 months before you start making a revenue, but you'll have to pay these people, pay the developers. So when do you actually start selling? Is it next month? Is it after 3 months? Do you have something that is ready, or is it still in an idea stage where you have to come up with the MVP, minimal viable product, and then go and find someone who can manufacture it and then start selling? Any development activity, as I mentioned? Are machines required? If yes, where will the money come from? What is the cost of such machines? Where will you keep that machine? In that case, are you going to rent out a place? How will you pay the advance to the landlord? Who is going to take care of it? Watchman, security camera, employees, cleaning, all the expenses will follow. When to buy that machine? Is inventory required? If you are going to buy inventory, from whom will you be buying the inventory? How much credit term will they give you? How much will you be buying? If I buy too much of coffee powder and beans, and if I can't sell it, then there will be a lot of wastage. So are you going to have raw materials that are perishable? Can you store it? If you're going to store it, where will you store it? Do you have enough warehouse space to store it? Ongoing costs, water, electricity, rent, all the overheads, all the fixed costs. What are all those? Have you taken each and everything under consideration? One-off purchases, like if you want in-house team, and this is what investors would like to see. Investors will not be comfortable if you say we have outsourced our development to some company. They say, then what if the company closes, or if they leak the information? We want everything in-house. So you might have to go and find a team. Before that, they will say, no, what is that you're going to pay me? You have to, and what are all the other facilities you're going to give? Office furniture, laptops, and if they're working from home, again, they will have many other things that they will demand. Have you considered that? How about other costs? Advertising, marketing, admin, office expenses, accounting, legal, to set up if you have co-founders. Have you got those term sheet? Nothing's signed. Have you got any lawyer who has looked into it? Is everything black and white clear? Have you registered the company? When will you start hiring people? Before hiring, do you know what each and every person will be doing? Have you got the tasks clearly defined? Do they know the responsibility? What kind of people are you going to hire? Where can you find them? Are you going to go and find an agency who can help you? Then they might, I think someone mentioned, no, we will help you get a placement and then you pay a commission. So they will be asking for a commission. So what is that? How is that you're going to work around with that? How many will you hire? And with all these uncertainties, working from home, coming to office, not able to travel outside the city, how can you manage that if you are trying to sell something in other tier 1, tier 2 cities or in other places? When will the business make the first rupee? This is very, very critical. When will it start generating revenue? Until then, how will you sustain? If it's for the next 3 months, 6 months, how will you sustain? How will you keep the show going with zero revenue? How much money is needed till the business starts making money through sales? Here are all the critical questions that I would like you to ask yourself before you present in the next round. So this is what is expected in your business plan. Your estimated cost per unit, selling price. Some of you are clear, but I would like to know your variable cost so that you know your contribution margin. The sales forecast, including the 3 profit margins: gross profit, operating profit, net profit. And we want it 1 to 3 years. At least definitely for the first year, we want a breakdown of it. And second and third, more or less, don't just increase sales by 10%, 50%. If that increases, even your variable cost increases, and you might have to buy more assets. Again, you'll have to show and then tell us where the cash is going to come from. Now, cash flow forecast is not something compulsory, but if you can do it, if you're really, really serious about the business idea, then you can't miss this. Eventually, you will have to do it. The question is, are you going to do it now, or are you going to do it whenever it becomes kind of an emergency? So pretty much this is what I wanted to share with all of you. If you have got any question with regards to finance or in general, we have got Naume sir, Sita Devangi and JP sir with regards to the business plan, then yes, I think they'll be able to answer as well. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. I hope you have got some understanding about finance, and at least you will start looking finance from a different perspective. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chinmayananda. It was exhaustive and made very, very simple for a layman to understand, is what I can simply put it as. I'm sure students would also agree. I'm sure it was also an eye-opener for all of us to, many aspects which they might not have thought about were brought to light, is what I can say. And it's open for question and answering. Any of you, please feel free. It's okay, even if you feel it could be the silliest question. There's nothing silly about it. Please ask. Anything.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Setu here. So thank you so much, Chinmay sir. It was very fantastic from your side, because this was a major perspective of marketing and finance where we were lacking, and we got a broader view about both the points. So specifically, I just want to ask in general that when we are coming over there to present our idea again in the third round, so as per the expectation, do we need to even showcase our prototype? Because that 10 minutes, if I want to actually take upon this marketing and finance itself, is a vast area where I have to cover a lot of aspects. So prototype, is it necessary at that particular time?
Can you please tell us what your product or service is about, Setu?
Sir, it's an application, to be precise, because it is a Homito. Our team is Homito 2144, which is actually focusing on it's a service product based thing where it's a home concept of making food and delivering with a unique idea set. So our prototype would be an application, or at least the view that how our application is going to look like.
Setu, have you come across Figma? Figma,
sorry, sir?
Figma, F-I-G-M-A, Figma?
No, sir, not exactly.
I would suggest you to look up F-I-G-M-A, Figma. This is used by designers. So end of the day, it's going to be an app, right? It's an application, and someone has to build it. For someone to build it, before that, someone has to design it. Now, that can be used as a simple tool where you can design just the look and feel of it, where you can say, hey, this is how it looks. This is what we have designed. And yeah, pretty much that can be your prototype. Of course, you don't have to look into the UI and UX part of it. At least if we can see, oh, this is what the app is all about, then yes, no, that would give you that edge. Now, as they say, a picture speaks 1,000 words. A PowerPoint slide speaks 10,000 words. A prototype speaks 100,000 words. And this is where we emphasize on having a prototype, at least, rather than making us to visualize, and each one of us, we might visualize in our own way. If you say, hey, this is what the app is all about, then it makes more sense.
Yeah, that's totally fine, sir. But I just wanted to focus like this marketing and finance aspect as well, because yes, we are making this prototype with Adobe FT, and even my teammate, we are all from computer science background, so he has been specialized in Figma and this thing. So I am not specifically into that. So
No.
he would be making it. I just wanted to know that whether we have to show it on that day or not, or else it will be a normal presentation like what we did in the second round.
So yeah, as I mentioned, it would give you that edge over others.
I second Chinmay's words.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Meanwhile, I think there is a long question in the chat box by someone, Businessman 48. Just like selling the solution, is there something like selling the problem? I know this might sound a little indifferent, but could it be a part of an unethical strategy to increase the demand? Like you have a solution, but the problem it aims to tackle. Like you have very limited. So You try to increase the frequency of the problem to make sure for, okay, that's a long question. I guess there might be many instances of cutthroat competition. Okay. Now, whoever has asked the question, business plan 48, well, is it ethical? And this is something that you'll have to ask yourself. Is that something that you can do and still sleep at night? But if you look at what's happening out there, if you look at any advertisement, they are pretty much making those big promises and not saying that, hey, brush your teeth, it will become white, sparkling. Really? Put this cream, you become more fair. Really? Spray this perfume and girls will fall over you. Really? Ride this bike and oh boy, girlfriends will be standing in queue. Really? Now, is it ethical? I don't know. The question is, again, it's up to you how you want to sell, how you want to exaggerate the problem, but you have hit the nail. At the end of the day, it is all about pain and gain, problem and solution. Now, as they say, you might have heard, take a horse to the water. It is up to the horse whether it wants to drink or not. Yes, that's a strategy, but sometimes, no, why do you want to take any horse to the water? Take a horse that is thirsty. Definitely it will drink. Or can you make the horse thirsty along the way, which means pretty much making that, exaggerating or pretty much telling them about the pain, and then they might end up buying that particular solution. So it's up to you. I hope I have answered that question. There is one more.
Yes.
I have a question. If we have a better mechanism as an added advantage for a product, can we include it in a business plan while presenting in our lecture? So yeah, definitely. As every single day there is something that we keep on coming up, and I think someone said every day if you're not improvising your business in some way or shape or form, you're wasted that day. So constantly, we have to be agile. We can change and then adapt and making it better. So yeah, you can do that.
The very purpose of conducting these workshops on every level is to come with a better, improvise your presentation if there's anything that you want to add and things like that.
Okay, someone business plan 168. So what would be the important parameters on which the presentation are to be made? Mainly, the next thing that we'd like to say is, how are you going to take that idea and execute it? Now, who is going to buy? So how are you going to make them buy? So what are all those marketing strategies you have? How will you sell to them? And for that, it will include costs. So have you taken all those into consideration? That is what we would like to see. And obviously, we don't want you miss the obvious. Like when I asked that question, what are all the resources? I didn't even hear one of you saying that, hey, we need to buy that vehicle. So that's obvious. So if you're missing some of those obvious, then I'm afraid you may not have really thought through that particular idea. Now, someone is asking, is the time frame allocated? I don't think I have an answer for that.
That will be informed when you're, when the mail, everything will be detailedly informed in the mail.
So business plan 140.
Allotted and the date and time and
10 minutes is presentation and the 3 minutes it's question and answer.
Okay, thank you.
13 minutes.
Okay, so there you go, 10 minutes for presentation and 3 minutes for Q&A. Is the next round, the presentation would be like fundraising pitch deck or only business model? Oh, that's a good question. You know what, ideally, I would like to see it more like a pitch deck, but at least business model is the bare minimum that we would like to see.
Yes, sir. So actually, we are generating the revenue, and we are looking for a seed investment. So we just wanted to present it as a fundraising pitch deck. So instead of just a business model pitch deck. So that's why I asked it.
Personally, I wouldn't have any issue with that. Umesh sir, anything?
No. They are at liberty to do that.
Okay. It's good to know. Do we have to prepare exclusive PPT for marketing in finance presentation, or should we include? So you can definitely include in the existing PPT, but again, don't have slide after slide. And I saw this time, people having slides and there are more than 100 words, 10 bullet points, and you're reading each and every bullet point. PowerPoint slide should be used as a supporting document. You should know exactly what you're going to say. And hey, by the way, here are the numbers. That is how it should be used as. Don't just go on reading it. We can see that. So save the time. Just tell us what the problem is. What is your solution, which we know to an extent as we are looking at your business plan. Now it's all about how. How can you make those sales, and how will you go about selling it, and how will you manage those finances? So that is what we would like to look into.
The elevator pitch is what it's termed, I guess. I mean, you heard about it. How can you, I mean, do you know your subject well so that you can squeeze it in that short period? You know what is the most important aspect that you need to present than giving a whole elaborate story, which, I mean, beating around the bush is the right word.
In other words, let's say you're dating a girl or a boy and you are in a cafe. You don't open a PowerPoint and say, hey, this is my name, this is what I have done, this is my resume. You pretty much know who you are and you're pitching yourself. Of course, if you're supporting, saying that, hey, this is the work I do, then you mention something. Same thing. We expect you to know in and out of what you are going to do with that idea. As a supporting document, you show those numbers.
Well, Chinmay knows it best to explain is better, something that you can relate, I guess. Any more questions? Do we prepare? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I'm from BP number 149. I'm from Mangalore, and right now, like in Mangalore, the costs are rising, and like a curfew, like a night curfew is imposed over here, and so many things. So, like if you are, since in mail it was mentioned like there's alternate arrangements can be done on request, and we have mailed it already. So in case when the alternate arrangement is done online, how are we, like we are having a prototype, so how can we present the prototype? Just like sir said, prototype will speak a million words. So how can we convey, like?
You can make a video of it with you being there, and we'll have specific questions also relating to that.
And like it's within minutes presenting.
No, that consider. Yeah, so, what is the, I mean, Chinmay Ananda wants to know what's your BP, and we can, accordingly suggest.
Sir, basically, like we are from the group Plastics for Upcycling, where we pick up the waste plastics and develop into lumbers, where the later can be converted into many products, just like bench, desk. There are many products which we can convert it to, and we are having a prototype, and even the machinery, like prototype machinery, set in the college. So because of the some restrictions, we are not we are not able to travel right now. Like even there are parents and grandparents who are like not so immune, so we are afraid to travel too.
So are you saying you're not able to go to your college and even record the video of it?
No, sir. Like we are not able to, like just like it was mentioned in the mail, like the presentation, like it's appreciate to be physically presented.
Yes. See, that is something that if possible, yes, that would be good. But I understand with what's going on, we don't want to put your life or someone at home's life at risk. So this is where, as Asita Devangi ma'am said, you can record a video. A simple video, it's more than sufficient, and we understand if you have made this video, then we can look into it and you can share it with us. I think, yeah, that should be the alternative.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
All good. And see, and this is what is happening. And in fact, I'm part of few angel networks. And then before, people used to come to our particular office and they used to pitch. And now it's all online. And many a times, people may not have this skill of presenting something effectively online. So they have this PowerPoint, they go on reading it, and we are like, we have already gone through the pitch deck. And now we are encouraging, for people who are pitching, saying that, hey, make a video and send it to us. Just get us excited with that video. And if you think it's worth, then we'll definitely call you and we can have that Q&A. So things are changing and we have to adapt moving forward. You may have to pitch someone, some investor in US or in Dubai. And yeah, you may not meet them in person, but you might have to raise $1 million. So you really have to think creative.
Yeah, as Mr. Chinmay Ananda mentioned, it's all about what we look for. Basically, what we look for is how much you know about what you're talking about. the business plan or the business idea that you have, and how much work that has gone into it, and how convinced are you, and what are the supporting factors for you to be so convinced. And it's not blindly you can say, okay, this is my baby and that's the best. Okay, and how much of work that has gone into, and how, what are the supporting factors? Market reality, is it realistic, and how are you going to position it and approach the market, and what are your target market, and these are the things that you would. So, and also the overall financial planning that goes into it. And as Chinmay Anand has mentioned, if you're just reading your PPT, it's very clear that you're not confident about your product. It's just been prepared, and you have been. It cannot be a college project. It is business. There's money that goes into it, so you cannot take that risk. So that's about it. Yeah. Anybody, please.
During the competition, do we get any network of investors or VCs? Yeah.
Well, as far as I know, that's not part of the package, but because you have people who are well connected, if they think this is something investable, then probably, they might reach out to you, and you can just slip in saying that, hey, by the way, we are at this stage, we are looking for investors. So I would really appreciate if you can connect with any potential investor. So if you don't ask, the answer is always no, but that's not part of the package as far as I know. As far as Manthan is concerned.
I agree with what Mr. Chinmay Ananda said. And also, Mr. Chinmay, would you like to suggest them for going for funding at this stage? Wouldn't be more like a takeover in case sometimes the chances are like that?
Yeah, this is again depends on the founders. If you're in the pre-revenue or even pre-seed stage, obviously an investor would take at least 20, if not 30% of the share in the company. Are you ready to dilute so much, or do you want to get some runs on the board? So many thousands of users you might have, and you're generating a revenue where you can show the valuation might be more, and then probably give 10% of the company. Like I know this particular startup, can't remember, MI something. They launched it. They spent like 12 crores in promoting it. Of course, all the big shots, they got all the who's who in the Bollywood to market it. And immediately they had someone saying, I'll give you 10 million. I want 20%. They said, probably no, we can't give you 20% of the share. So once they get 1 million users, then they might give 5% for the same 10 million. So the founders are very clear. What is that they want to give and how is that they want to play. So you as founders, it's up to you. Do you want to give more share initially and then get the money, or do you want to somehow get some runs on the board and get the valuation up?
So what if we go with a safe note? I have some knowledge about the safe note, so just I asked. So instead of like deciding the equity and all, what if we go for a safe note option? Yeah, while raising the fund.
Again, it's an option. If an investor is fine with it, then yes. Some of them would again prefer that convertibles, those CCDs, where initially they'll give the money. They will expect you to treat it as a debt, and they expect a fixed return, which would be definitely more than what the bank would have charged you. It might be 12%, 15%, as it is unsecured. And then after 1 year, again, it's all on term sheet saying that when the valuation is so much, or when we go for the actual seed round or Series A funding, then we will give you 20%, 30%. And if that is something investors are comfortable with, you can look into it. Otherwise, they might say, you know what, I've got many other opportunities or offers on the table. I may not take that route.
Yeah,
depends on the.
Absolutely. Because as somebody asked, will they if they can pitch and things. Sometimes, there will be takers. Somebody is very impressed with the idea and they might come forward. But this is not the platform focused on raising funds. It's basically helping you build your business plan and work on it. And yes, of course, the winner would get the funding, whatever the prize amount that has been announced. And here, the takeaway more here is about knowledge. It's not the money.
And we have a question in the chat box saying, talking about funding, will the winners be awarded as per their financial statements or is it prefixed? Also, what about the runners-up and the consolation prize? Well, the first part I'll answer, no, it doesn't depend on what financials you have mentioned, saying that, you know what, they've asked for 10 lakhs, so let us give them 5 lakhs prize. No, it doesn't work that way. It's all about, can you make something out of that idea? Can you go out there and start making some revenue? And at the same time, not only being an employer, can you also generate some kind of an employment? And overall, no, we're all here to make sure how we can directly or indirectly contribute to the economy of our country. With regards to the runners-up and consolation, yes, we do have that. However, I do not know the prize amount, so probably I'll request one of the jury members to help me out with that.
Yeah, yes, definitely we do have. It all depends on the number of the sponsors that we can, get. It's not finalized yet. If more we get, more, it'll all be given, shared, just to encourage so that more and more people apply for this and they go back with vast knowledge about how to start up and a business and become an entrepreneur.
Help us with a little bit because we are traveling from Mangalore to Bangalore for this presentation. So 17th is the date which is being told. So by what time we should be there or like can stay? Such
those details would be mailed to you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And also, those who have requested for stay and things like that, you have to mail them back. And there's a team working on it and it'll all be taken care.
They have to be here at 8:30. The breakfast will be arranged. 9 o'clock presentation will start.
Any stay facility required, it
intimate that
in early.
We will intimate them. It depends on we have yet to get their confirmation of physical presence. So based on that, it will be intimated to them.
See, last minute arrangement is very difficult. We want to help you out. That's the reason we are saying you have to inform prior to, coming here. Or stay arrangements if required. Hope it's clear to everybody. Yeah, yes,
there, so it would be like no physical presentations will be there, like cancellation of physical presentation would be there. Or...
No, you are breaking. Your voice is breaking.
Audible, ma'am?
Yes, please.
Ma'am, I was just asking, like, if there are 40 to 45 teams and most of them are like telling it's we are not coming over there to present, so the physical presentation would be like cancelled and it would be made online for everyone like that.
No, nothing like that. It's like we are open for it. The choice is yours in case some people cannot come and there's something we will have a consideration and case to case we will evaluate. I mean, if there's any issue and things like that. But you are open to come. We have always made facilities and.
So does it like give any like bad remarks if we don't come? Is there something like that?
Not really.
See, these days people are getting engaged and even wedding is happening online. So I am pretty sure that you can make an impression online.
It all depends on how you present, how you can convey your business idea and convince the juries about your business idea. We can always make out if it's a video, if it's just professionally done with all cooked up thing or, I mean, here the juries are all very eminent personalities who have been in industries quite some time.
Is there any separate schedule for the online presentation?
No, nothing like that. Those details will be shared.
Ma'am, do we have to be present with a mentor or the team members if you are coming there?
Team members, fine.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, I think we can wind up.
I think we have 3 more minutes as per schedule and we are on time and we had an excellent, fruitful day is what I can say. Hope all the students also would agree with it. And I would like to first thank the facility providers and also the Mr. Umesh, the secretary, and Daksha Shetty, who has been working backstage for this, and the main person for this workshop, who has curated this so well and brought us all together, requesting everybody to give their time and come prepared and deliver the session. That's the chairman for this workshop, that is Jai Prakash Nagatihalli, who deserves applause. Let's give a big.
No, thank you. It's a team effort, and I do applaud Chinmay. It was not some understanding; it was really a better understanding and great understanding, Chinmay. And we have experienced two best presentations today. Both were presented very well with their vast experience. And I think they have cleared most of the doubts of our participants today. And Chinmay, it was a very nice and interactive session. And I also thank you, and along with Mr. Sanjeev Sukumaran, who spoke about marketing with a soothing voice, and he has highlighted the word articulating. And he has also mentioned the difference between sales and marketing. And Ms. Asita Devangi, I thank you also, along with all the jury members and knowledge workshop committee members, along with the Manthan committee and the whole of FKCCI and FKCCI staff headed by Mr. Umesh. Thank you, Asita, for supporting me in this journey.
My pleasure, sir. My pleasure. All the best, students. We would like to, see you all come prepared, charged, and we are looking forward to see you. And Jayaprakash sir, thank you for this opportunity from my behalf also. And we would like to thank FKCCI team and all FKCCI leadership team, office bearers, and then Manthan chairperson, KP Nagesh, and also co-chair, that is Dr. Madhurani, and again our workshop committee chair, that is Jayaprakash Nagatihalli, all the jury members, staff of FKCCI, all the students, for being so prompt and showing interest and making this event very successful. Looking forward to see you all again on the next that is evaluation day, that is 17th. Thank you.
Thank you once again for having me and giving me this opportunity.
Excuse me, sir.
I think there's a couple of questions. Yes, I just saw your question which says, can we give demo with our prototype there? Yes, we would encourage that if it's possible.
Yes. You're most welcome.
They can.
And a question before that. Sorry, Umesh sir.
Yes, they can give, because it gives more clarity to the jury also. If they have
asking, is this the final round of presentation, or it has further?
No, it will be followed by another one.
That is on 3rd September.
No. We are ending it on August itself.
Is it? Okay. Okay, that will be intimated. There will be one more level of evaluation.
One level of evaluation will be there.
So participants, I would also like to mention, as uncertainties is out there, even we are not sure what is going to happen, and we don't know whether there will be a complete lockdown end of this month. So back-end team is really working with limited knowledge with regards to what's happening out there. So if you have got any questions with regards to travel, which round, when, so on and so forth, Umesh sir would be the go-to person who would have the latest information.
Perfect. And today's sessions were more like an master's, MBA in finance and marketing in nutshell. Please save this, video for, it's for your life is what I can say. As an entrepreneur, you should keep it. So it was really comprehensive and well, curated. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have to thank all the participants, because they were actively participated today when compared to our earlier workshops. So good. All the best to all of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Best wishes.
Thank you, sir.